Yes.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. Welcome to the first day of certificate course in multimedia and content development organized by the Press Club of India and newswriters.in. As you all know, that the Press Club of India is a leading media organization in the country, providing various services to journalists and other communication professionals. They are conducting various programs for the professional growth and development of journalists and media professionals. On the other hand, newswriters.in is an educational platform launched by a group of media academicians and professionals to impart training in niche and emerging areas of the different streams of journalism, communication, and digital media. I'd like to say that the goal of this course is to keep working professional faculty and students up to the date on the latest transformation occurring in the aftermath of digital revolution, specifically with the introduction of artificial intelligence and algorithms, which are changing job profiles in every spheres of our life, work, and as well as the demand is like acquisition of our new skills. So with the permission of Professor Subhas Dhulia, founder director of newswriters.in, we are going to start our first session. Topic of this session is contemporary media landscape. And the speaker is Mr. Rajesh Joshi. Mr. Rajesh Joshi has worked in print, broadcast, and digital media. A founding member of BBC Hindi digital team, he has been part of the core team that led the digital transformation of the Sinhalese and Nepali services of the BBC. Besides covering big stories from different parts of the world, from Brazil to West Africa, the UK, the US, Cuba, Pakistan, and Europe, he has covered Indian politics extensively, covering issues such as Kashmir, Maoist insurgency, and the Kargil war. He was also planning editor of BBC Hindi services in London. So before we start the session, I'd like to request all of you to please mute yourself. And if you have any question, please write down that in the chat box or raise your hand. I think after the session, Mr. Joshi would like to address all those things. So over to you, Mr. Joshi. Welcome to the session.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Professor Subhas Dhulia, for inviting me for this session. And I don't know what to say when, illustrious editors like John Dayal and Professor Subhas Dhulia, they are here. They are much more experienced than me, and the rest of the people also who are participating in this session.
Excuse me, sir. I think your volume is a bit low.
Oh, volume, can you hear me now?
Yeah. It's okay
All
now.
right, sorry.
It's okay now, sir.
So should I repeat myself? I was just saying informally that when people like John Dayal and Professor Subhas Dhulia and all other people, they are here, I don't know what to say because I'm not going to reveal any state secrets about journalism. I'm not going to give any, any new thing which you already don't
I
know.
asked John Dayal that you are still prepared to learn. He said the day I stop learning, I will die.
Okay, so that's even you're putting even greater pressure on me.
These
Well,
are John Dayal's words.
I know we have to learn from people like him and you. So what I'm saying is that we have to remind ourselves at times what kind of times we are living in. Although we are aware of the pitfalls and brighter side of the media landscape, it's such a huge subject. It's such a vast subject that it can't be covered in 30 to 40 minutes. But I'll just touch upon a few areas and then throw open the whole meeting for questions. And as I have been saying, and I tell my students also, I've been a journalist for a little over than 3 decades. And my profession has taught me to ask questions every time, but not to answer them. I don't know how to answer them because it's not what my profession has taught me. We are trained to ask questions. But still, I'll try to give you a
एक सेकंड
और-
पहले मैं सेटअप कर दूं फिर बात करता हूँ
sorry, there's a somebody saying something, sorry.
Yes, समर्श जी कुछ कह रहे हैं?
Okay, मेरी गुजारिश है यहाँ some people are from South India, I think, and some people are from North India, so I'll keep it a sort of mixed Hindi and English. अगर जो ये बोल नहीं रहे हैं वो अपना माइक ऑफ कर दें तो ज़्यादा आसानी होगी, नहीं तो बाहर की आवाज़ें आती रहेंगी. So media landscape is changing constantly and rapidly. We all know about that. There's a multitude of media outlets, social media options, and legacy media also. And we are flooded by information, whether we want it or not, whether we like it or not. News consumption was not our priority a few decades ago. It never consumed more than a little portion of our time. We waited for our daily newspaper in the morning, read the newspaper, put it in a corner and forget about it. You go about your business. And then in the evening, when there was no television, I'm talking about pre-television, when there was no television. So next day you read your newspaper and probably in a chai ka dhaba, you discuss politics and all that. That used to happen a few decades ago. But now news is always with us. We crave for it, that demand. Somebody's microphone is not off, so please could you switch off your microphone? It's distracting me.
Dhulia sir, you are host, you are admin, so you are requested to mute all the participants, sir.
Do I mute all? I think it's okay. Redmi 9A, can you please mute yourself?
Yeah, please mute because otherwise
9A.
थोड़ा distract कर रहा है.
If I mute all, then you will not able to.
Okay. So, well, I was saying that now, whether you like it or not, news is always with us. You get up in the middle of the night and you go for your smartphone, read news, make up your mind or form of your opinion or whatever. It is always with you. So explosion of digital media, availability of smartphone, and relatively cheap data. And also, this is important, divisive political agenda that keeps the country on the boil 24/7. All these things came together and they formed a media landscape and media ecosystem which we live in. Now, in the good old newspaper days, it was not like that. We may have liked or disliked the newspaper, but the editors tried very hard to protect their credibility, the newspaper's credibility. For them, credibility was everything. Printed word was like the gospel's truth. 24/7 TV news channels cashed in on that credibility, that trust capital, while broadcasting outlandish stories about aliens and zombies and, all sorts of funny or non-funny stories. And they lost the credibility, they lost the trust. News, information became infotainment. The fights which we watch every evening in our drawing rooms, that is our entertainment also. That informs us in a very skewed manner, but that entertains us also. An anchor shouting on top of her or his voice is our daily staple of entertainment. And now they are clearly identified as pro or anti-government. I mean, well, anti-government channels, it would be a good idea, but there are hardly any anti-government channels, but there are so many pro-government channels. Lines. I was trained as a reporter, as a journalist in the late 80s. So we were taught about breaking news, hard news, soft news, verified news, half-baked information, features, opinion pieces, and so on, news analysis. Memes is a very recent phenomenon. But there was a clear demarcation between all these things. Now, since everyone has that smartphone and cheap data, everyone is a newsman. Everyone thinks that he or she is a newsman. They perceive, average consumer, I'm talking about average consumer of news, doesn't make a distinction between these things, whether it's soft news, hard news, or feature, or verification of a story. They perceive each of these methods as carrier of information, and they tend to believe what confirms their biases. If I'm pro-government and I get something, an opinion piece or a meme or a video in favor of government, I will forward it. Else, I will start trolling the person who sent that to me. Why do people love fake news? It's a very important thing. We keep asking, we keep discussing all these things. Why do people love fake news? Because, as I said, it confirms our biases. They know it. They know, or we know, that it's not true. But then they tend to justify it by saying, what's wrong with that? Is this happening for the first time? To be first with news is looked at some sort of a victory, an achievement. I know it. I will forward it to you. And as if I am telling you, I'm breaking that story to you. That sort of false notion we all have, although we are only forwarding a half-baked information or pure fake news. And everyone wants to be in the business of breaking news. Now, this breaking news was not there when we had newspapers. We, had stop press. John Dayal would vouch for it. Stop press if before 12 o'clock or when the newspaper went to press, if there's a breaking story, so there will be stop press and small item will be published in the newspaper after confirmation, of course. But now, since everyone has that smartphone and cheap data and a lot of uninformed opinion, so they want to be in the business of breaking news, but they are not trained to handle it. Neither do they care about the basic rules of broadcasting. Sharing of news, memes, images, or videos is considered a pious duty. Some people think it's their pious duty or civic duty to build opinion for nation building. People have taken it upon themselves that by spreading news that confirm their biases, they are helping in building the nation. And it's a very serious vocation according to them. And people do not care about facts, accuracy, or even truth. I'll give you an example. All of you know about this example, but still, let me underline it. The news about a Kanhaiya being beheaded in Rajasthan reached my relatives and stayed with them as a reference to be quoted in a heated political, dinner table conversation. तुमको मालूम नहीं है वहां राजस्थान में क्या हुआ, वो कन्हैया का तो सिर काट दिया इन लोगों ने. But the news of the gruesome killing of a migrant Muslim laborer by Shambhunath Regar either didn't reach them or didn't stay with them. Even if the news, they consumed the news that Shambhunath Regar made a video while hacking this hapless Muslim laborer from West Bengal, made a video, put it on social media. That video reached everyone, but somehow people tend to forget it. You try to remind them about Shambhunath case and they would say, no, I'm not aware of that. Sorry, I don't remember. Despite the fact that jhankis were taken out on Ram Navami featuring Shambhunath Regar as a hero, almost a deity. So this is a new phenomenon. As human beings, we were biased. Bias is always is a human trait. We are either biased in favor or against somebody, but the scale has completely gone through the roof. Social media consumers hate balanced news. You take sides to be a successful social media influencer. YouTube is a very good example. Some of the journalists who ask questions, who ask powers that be difficult questions, but they take a position, they take a side. Either you are with them or against them. There is no middle path. Your content will tank if you produce like, BBC style balanced content. He said this, he said that, this is their opinion, that is their opinion. Nobody is interested in knowing that. And the entertainment quotient, ये इसमें जो मनोरंजन वाला एलिमेंट आ गया है, इसने न्यूज को, खबर को भ्रष्ट कर दिया है, और उस भ्रष्ट खबर को कंज्यूम करने में के लिए हम बहुत तैयार हैं, चाहे वो एडिटेड वीडियो हो या एक लंबे वीडियो का छोटा हिस्सा निकाल करके उसे किसी पॉलिटिकल एंटिटी को मेलाइन करने के लिए, बदनाम करने के लिए इस्तेमाल किया गया हो। हमको मालूम है कि ये हो रहा है, लेकिन हम या तो खुशी से ये जानते हुए भी कि ये फेक न्यूज़ है, या तो हम उसको इग्नोर कर देते हैं या खुशी से शेयर करते हैं। एक और नया फेनोमेनन जो इस बीच आया हुआ है हमारे डिजिटल एक्सप्लोजन के साथ, वो है कि क्राइम स्टोरीज सेल. It's an old dictum. Crime reporters, I have been a crime reporter in Delhi. So बाकी पॉलिटिकल स्टोरीज जो भी करते हो, लेकिन क्राइम की एक स्टोरी आती है, वो पेज 1 पे जाती है और एंकर बनता था. So crime stories sell. But back in that newspaper era, I'm talking time and again about that newspaper era, there were so many things which were not very bright, but at least we can, there was a benchmark. So back then, crime was not committed in front of our eyes. We knew from morning newspapers that somebody had been murdered, kidnapped, stabbed or raped or lynched. But now it happens in front of our eyes, thanks to CCTV cameras, smartphone videos, and some secret video maker. A cop hitting a street vendor, a hapless pickup driver being lynched, or a woman being abused. It all unfolds in front of our eyes. No context, no backgrounder, no journalistic rules, just the video of the crime that mainly reinforces our biases. Or even if it goes against our biases, we tend to justify it. So we are, this is an oft repeated term that we live in echo chambers. It's our new cyber home, because algorithm-driven content that suits our existing beliefs is thrown at us. It limits exposure to diverse perspectives. It hinders critical thinking, reinforces biases, and increases societal polarization. Now, I was reading a piece in the Business World by Srinath Sridharan. He has beautifully explained all, this phenomenon, that how we live in echo chambers, and how even journalists, forget about journalists, even political leaders, well-meaning political leaders, people who hold position of responsible positions, even they fall prey to fake news, and because it reinforces their biases. Example, I need not talk about it, but because all of you are aware of it. But in 2016, when JNU erupted and some students were accused of making speeches and shouting slogans against India. Kanhaiya Kumar was one of them, or Umar Khalid was another, and there was third person. Somebody, some mischievous person, made a fake Twitter account in the name of Hafiz Saeed, the Pakistani terrorist, and said, we must support our JNU brethren and all that. Delhi police fell prey to that. They said, we are trying to warn JNU students that don't follow this, that, because this Hafiz Saeed and they are involved. And Home Minister of India retweeted that, and he said Hafiz Saeed is their supporter. It was fake news, because since it confirmed the biases, political or otherwise, of certain people, they shared it. So thought when we were growing up that Hinduism, Sanatan Dharma, is my identity. I had Muslim friends and Christian friends. We never greeted them on Eid. They never greeted me on Holi, Diwali. We were just friends, just like that. It was not, we didn't feel it was our responsibility to greet them on Eid, or he or she never thought it was her, responsibility to say Shubh Janmashtami. But now social identities have become very, very important. I'll give you an example. I know a young lawyer who consumes information mostly from social media. Most of us do that, primarily Instagram. Can I request to please switch off your microphone? Please mute your mics, please.
So it is better to mute everyone, and we can, you can ask about doubts at the end of the session, allowing individual person to unmute themselves.
Sorry, say again. Could you please repeat yourself?
सर मैं ये बोल रही हूँ कि अभी के लिए सबको आप म्यूट कर दीजिए, सेशन के एंड में इंडिविजुअल पर्सन को अनम्यूट कर लेने से ठीक रहेगा।
हाँ, बिल्कुल ठीक कह रही हैं, बिल्कुल ठीक कह रही हैं।
लेकिन सबको म्यूट कर देंगे तो लोग बोल कैसे पाएंगे?
नहीं, मेरे अलावा बाकी
हैंड राइज करके पूछ लेंगे आपको।
हाँ, कोई बात नहीं, तो ठीक है, अभी वो आवाज वो चलेगी। आप अपना माइक, मैं ज्यादा टाइम नहीं लूंगा, थोड़ा बहुत चीजें मैं कह के। मैं आपको एक एनेक्डोट सुना रहा था। मैं एक लॉयर को जानता हूँ, यंग लॉयर है, जो अपनी ज्यादातर इंफॉर्मेशन सोशल मीडिया से लेता है। वेल रेड है, ऐसा नहीं है कि उसने कुछ पढ़ा नहीं है, वो बंद दिमाग का नहीं है, इंस्टाग्राम से वो इंफॉर्मेशन लेता है। डिसर्निंग है, चीज़ों में फ़र्क कर सकता है। हम लोग बात कर रहे थे तो उसी वक्त वो न्यूज़ आई कि तमिलनाडु के मुख्यमंत्री एम के स्टालिन ने कहा कि सनातन धर्म को इरेडिकेट करना है, मिटाना है। सनातन धर्म को, जैसे डेंगू, मलेरिया ये सब होता है, उसके एम के स्टालिन के बेटे ने। वो जब उन्होंने कहा, मैंने उनसे शेयर किया, मैंने उनसे बताया कि इस तरह की बात करी, ये सोचते हुए कि ये यंग लॉयर हैं और ये इसको पूरी पर्सपेक्टिव में देखेगा। उसने कहा, दिस इज जेनोसाइड, दिस इज कॉल फॉर अ जेनोसाइड। आई मीन, ही इज ट्राइंग टू किल मी एंड ही फ्लू ऑफ द हैंडल। मैंने कहा, अचानक ये क्या हो गया है, क्यों ऐसा बोल रहे हैं? बोले, नहीं, वो सनातन धर्म को इरेडिकेट करने का मतलब सनातन धर्मियों को इरेडिकेट करने की बात कर रहा है। मैंने कहा, देखो, उन्होंने जो कहा है उससे आप अग्री कर सकते हैं, डिसएग्री कर सकते हैं, लेकिन उन्होंने कहा कि सनातन धर्म के मूल में कास्ट डिस्क्रिमिनेशन है, ये सब है। उस आइडियोलॉजी, वो या जो फिलॉसफी है, उसको इरेडिकेट करने की बात की है उसने, और उससे मैं सहमत हूँ, असहमत हूँ, ये अलग बात है। लेकिन जेनोसाइड का कॉल ये कैसे है, ये मैंने उनसे पूछा। बोला, नहीं, ये जेनोसाइड का कॉल इसलिए है, डायरेक्टली अफेक्ट्स मी, आई एम अ सनातनी हिंदू, ऑल्दो आई एम एन एथीस्ट। अब ये इस तरह के, जो मैं अभी एक एग्जांपल से देख रहा हूँ, हम लोगों को किस तरह से ओपिनियन फॉर्मेशन कैसे सोशल मीडिया करता है। एक एथीस्ट है जो उसने लेफ्ट लिटरेचर को भी पढ़ा है, राइट को भी पढ़ा है, अच्छा एजुकेटेड आदमी, वो कह रहे, इट्स माय आइडेंटिटी, it has been thrust upon me, my name is so and I have a Hindu name, so this is a call for a genocide, it directly affects me. So I asked, my next question was, when there was a direct call of a genocide from Haridwar, a so-called Dharm Sansad, did you react in the same way? He said, no, because I did not feel strongly about it. It did not affect me directly. अब देखिए, क्या ये बॉइल डाउन क्या हो रहा है कि ये जो सोशल मीडिया, जो न्यूज़ हम कंज्यूम कर रहे हैं, इस तरह से असर कर रहा है। कि आप फर्क कर रहे हैं। एक जेनोसाइड का कॉल या एक खास रिलीजियस फिलॉसफी को खत्म करने का कॉल आपको जेनोसाइड लग रहा है, एक डायरेक्ट जेनोसाइड देने का कॉल आपको जेनोसाइड, या आप उससे प्रभावित नहीं हो रहे हैं। इस तरह से हम प्रोसेस कर रहे हैं इंफॉर्मेशन को, और ये प्रोसेसिंग आज की नहीं है, ये प्रोसेसिंग अगले 3 महीने तक नहीं, ये एक कंटिन्यूअल प्रोसेस है, एक लगातार चलने वाली प्रक्रिया है, जिससे हमारी ये जो भावी पीढ़ी है उसका माइंड बन रहा है, उसके ओपिनियंस फॉर्म हो रहे हैं। So the question of identity has become very crucial. Any information, verified or unverified, about identity attracts attention of a lot of people, young or old. And I follow a Twitter handle, The Muslim. You know, it's a great example. It amplifies news about so-called atrocities on Muslims in India. Okay, videos and in Hindi. It shares. I mean, it's a good sort of source, but it's not limited to that. It also posts videos about Israeli soldiers attacking Palestinians with equal passion and anger. So for this Twitter handle, the Muslim, he or whoever runs it, Muslim Ummah is more important for him. So his identity as Muslim is not confined to India. He doesn't, or she doesn't confine himself or herself, identify as an Indian Muslim. He identifies himself or his Twitter handle as part of Muslim Ummah. So, and there are Hindu fanatic Twitter handles and all that. I don't need to go into the details. Because, you know what? Validation of identity, it trumps over verification of facts. आपकी आइडेंटिटी का कोई वैलिडेशन कर रहा हो, आपकी जो आप जैसे मानते हैं कि आपकी पहचान है, उस पर कोई स्टैंप लगा रहा हो, उसको फिर वो तथ्यात्मक हो या ना हो, उसमें सच हो झूठ हो, आप उसको स्वीकार करेंगे। कंज्यूमर न्यूज जैसे हम पहले पैसिव होते थे, 24 घंटे में एक बार न्यूज को इस्तेमाल करते थे, लेकिन कंज्यूमर ऑफ न्यूज हैज बिकम एन एक्टिव पार्टिसिपेंट। यू नो, ब्रेकिंग न्यूज अब उसके ट्विटर पे आती है और उसको तुरंत उस पर रिएक्ट करता है। ओपिनियन फॉर्म पहले से हो रहा होता है, उस पर रिएक्ट करता है, वो शेयर करता है या कमेंट करता है या ट्रोल करता है या ब्लॉक करता है, डिलीट करता है, लेकिन रिएक्ट करता है, तो पार्टिसिपेंट है। ब्रेकिंग न्यूज का ये जो दौर आया, ये सोशल मीडिया के पहले का दौर है। ब्रेकिंग न्यूज हमारी जिंदगी में कोई मायने नहीं रखती थी। इंदिरा गांधी, आप सब लोगों को मालूम ही होगा जो थोड़े से उम्र में ज्यादा हैं, इंदिरा गांधी की मौत हो गई, ब्रेकिंग न्यूज नहीं आई, सिर्फ वो रेडियो पे एक धुन बजती रही, शास्त्रीय संगीत, उदास सी, कंफर्म नहीं किया। उस वक्त इतना वो भी नहीं था, न्यूज़पेपर अगले दिन आए थे। बीबीसी ने उसको ब्रेक किया न्यूज, जो बहुत ही, अभी बार बार इसकी बात की जाती है जिसको मुझे रिपीट भी नहीं करना है। So breaking news became important in our lives when 24-hour news channels created a demand for that by showing a scuffle between a husband and a wife, girlfriend, wife, going to be divorced couples, shopkeeper, consumer fight, jilted lover refusing to, climb down from TV towers and all that, a baby being rescued from a bore well. So that become our entertainment. किसी का दुख, दारुण दुख हमारा एंटरटेनमेंट बन गया और हम सब उसमें हिस्सेदार बन गए हैं। हम हिस्सेदार इस तरह से बन गए हैं कि पत्रकारों की बात करते हैं। बहुत सारे लोग ये तर्क भी देते हैं, और इसमें बहुत ही वो है कि आप नौकरी कर रहे हैं और आप नहीं तो कोई दूसरा। अगर आप प्रोप्राइटर है, उसकी पॉलिसी को कंफर्म नहीं करेंगे तो यू विल बी शोन द डोर, और ये आज पहली बार नहीं हो रहा है। उस जमाने में भी जब लाला रामनाथ गोयनका, जिनको हम कहते थे इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के फायर ब्रांड प्रोप्राइटर, ओनर, वो जब अखबार चलाते थे, उन अखबारों में तमाम आइडियोलॉजिकल स्पेक्ट्रम के लोग आते थे, लेफ्ट से लेके राइट तक। लेकिन बहुत सारे लोग निकाले भी गए सिर्फ इस वजह से कि वो न्यूज़पेपर की पॉलिसी को कंफर्म नहीं करते थे। तो ऐसा पहले भी होता था, लेकिन अब जब से ये न्यूज़ की डेफिनेशन बदल दी है 24/7 टेलीविजन ने, किसी का तलाक होने वाला है, उन दोनों को सोफे पे बिठा करके आपस में लड़वा दीजिए या आर्ग्यूमेंट करवा दीजिए। एक वाइफ है साउथ अफ्रीका में, हिंदुस्तान में उसका हस्बैंड है, और हम सब लोग ड्राइंग रूम में बैठ कर उसको देख रहे हैं न्यूज़ की तरह, करंट अफेयर्स की तरह। नोएडा में वो पाकिस्तान की महिला जो आई हुई है, वो एक मीडिया सर्कस में बदल गया, क्योंकि हमारा एंटरटेनमेंट है। एक अजीब सी हमें क्यूरियसिटी होती है। ये जो सोशल मीडिया है, स्मार्टफोन से, इससे हमारा इंटीग्रल पार्ट बन गया है। लेकिन उस दौर के जो न्यूज़ में और आज के फर्क ये है कि उस दौर में वेरीफाइड न्यूज़ होती थी। जब हमने जर्नलिज्म शुरुआत की तो उसमें बिल्कुल ठोक पीट करके हमें बताया जाता था कि तथ्यों की परवाह करें। अखबार में सत्य नहीं छपता है। हमारे एक न्यूज़ एडिटर थे अच्युतानंद मिश्र जी, जनसत्ता में, जब प्रभाष जोशी वहाँ एडिटर हुआ करते थे। वो कहते थे अखबार में सत्य नहीं छापा जाता है, अखबार में तथ्य छपते हैं, फैक्ट्स। ट्रूथ का हमें कुछ वो नहीं है। सत्य तो पता नहीं कहाँ कितनी परतों में दबा है। उन परतों से जो कुछ आपके पास तथ्य आए हैं उनको छापिए। और ये वेरिफिकेशन का, छोटी से छोटी डिटेल्स का बहुत ध्यान रखा जाता था। मर्डर जहाँ पे हुआ है वहां से कितने फीट की दूरी पर ये दरवाजा है, कितनी फुट की दूरी पर किचन था, पहले कौन आया, एंट्री किसकी हुई, ये माइन्यूट डिटेल क्राइम रिपोर्टर, जो बिल्कुल रूकी रिपोर्टर होता था, उसको वो गलती करता था, गलती करके उसको बार बार ये समझाया जाता था, ताकि वो कभी फैक्ट्स, जब वो कोर्ट की रिपोर्टिंग करने लगे तो उन फैक्ट्स को वो हमेशा ध्यान में रखे। चाहे वो उसकी जो कंसीव्ड स्टोरी है, उसने जिस तरह से परसीव की, उसके खिलाफ भी जाती हो, तो अपनी स्टोरी, चाहे उसकी स्टोरी किल हो जाती हो, लेकिन वो फैक्ट्स को के साथ खिलवाड़ नहीं करेगा। Now that thumb rule has been diluted. News anchors freely mix their opinion in news. They run down people on their shows, give extra time to people that suit their agenda. Don't blame the messenger. They are just anchors. They are doing their naukri. Some of them, I mean, most of them are doing their naukri. Some of them have become part of the bigger agenda. And we are not talking about that. I'm talking about people who earn a living by going to their Noida office in the morning, coming back in the evening, and the daily grind. Having said that, I mean, this is most of what I'm saying is, you'll find it as some sort of a repetition, but we need to remind ourselves that, is there any way out? What happened to that creativity? Do we need that kind of creativity? जब मैं जनसत्ता में काम करता था, प्रभाष जोशी हेडलाइंस देते थे और दूसरे दिन सिर्फ उस हेडलाइन की चर्चा होती थी। जॉन दयाल साहब शायद अगर हैं अभी तो उनको याद होगा, विश्वनाथ प्रताप सिंह के एक बहुत ही लेफ्ट ट्रस्टेंट होते थे भूरेलाल, और भूरेलाल के खिलाफ किसी तरह का एक वो राजीव गांधी की सरकार में शायद, इफ आई एम नॉट रॉन्ग, कुछ एक उनके खिलाफ एक्शन हुआ या उनके बारे में कुछ कैंपेन चला, तो प्रभाष जोशी ने हेडलाइन दी, तो भूरे लाल पर लाल पीले क्यों होते हो, हिंदी में। इस तरह की हेडलाइन आज आप अगर किसी पोर्टल में देंगे, न्यूज पोर्टल में या डिजिटल उसमें, तो आपकी स्टोरी कोई पढ़ेगा नहीं। ये क्या छायावादी हेडलाइन दी है, हु केयर्स अबाउट लाल पीले नीले। बी बोरिंग, be non-creative, the editor won't care. But mind your SEO and keywords, search engine optimization and keywords. If you have keywords in your headline in the first 2 paragraphs of your story, then your story will fly, else it will sink. So that kind of creativity is no longer required. But human being is a creative animal. So we have to be creative with our headlines, in the sense that don't reveal everything. Say, somebody is calling me, but I won't take this call, sorry. Not only that, but in the top lines of the story, we were told as students of journalism, 5 W's, 1 H, everything has to be in the first intro, top paragraph. Not anymore. Don't reveal the whole story in the headlines or in the intro, as we used to do in newspapers, because the advertiser, the sponsor, wants the consumer of news to stay on the page until the last line. Have a look at the advertisements thrown in between and get you business, money. Otherwise, bounce off rate. People are very scared in digital journalism, bounce off rate. If it goes up, that means people are coming to your website, people are coming to your YouTube channel, but they are not staying there. After 3 seconds, 4 seconds, they lose interest and then they go away. That is called bounce off rate. If they are not coming back, if they are not sticking to the story, not staying on the page, your journalism is worthless. That's what we have been told. However, you may be a good writer or whatever, doesn't matter. So don't reveal anything in the first paragraph. Keep them engaged throughout the story. Now, this is an art. It's a new kind of technique. It's a new kind of news writing style, which we all have to learn, because although I'm talking about good old newspaper days and all that, but we can't go back to the 80s or the 70s or even before that. पराड़कर साहब के ज़माने में अब हम नहीं जा सकते हैं. अब तो हमको अडानी, अंबानी और ये जो भी चैनल्स इनके कंट्रोल में हैं, उसी में रहना है. और टेक्नोलॉजी जिस तरह से ड्राइव कर रही है चीज़ों को, उसी में चीज़ों को कैसे प्रो पीपल बनाया जाए, उसका स्ट्रगल है. सो एक और चैलेंज इसके साथ आता है. ये तो चैलेंजेस जिनकी बात हमने की वो की. एक और चैलेंज है इंक्रीजिंग इंटरफेरेंस फ्रॉम द गवर्नमेंट. Government is now going to tell you, or government bureaucrats, they are going to tell you whether a particular news item is fake news or not. PIB officials will dictate terms and you will jolly well follow the rules. This is happening in today's India. I'll just wind up now, I think. Do we have time? दुलिया साहब,
Yes, we have time.
7:10 हो गए हैं, तो
हम लोग we can conclude till 7:30.
हाँ, ओके. तो उसके बाद थोड़ा सा हम लोग आपस में एक कॉन्वर्सेशन भी कर लेंगे. मैं आपको ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि ये जो रूल्स बदले हैं, सरकार की जो नज़र डिजिटल जो मीडिया है उस पर है, उसमें न्यूज़ पोर्टल्स भी हैं, उसमें सब कुछ है, उनसे बहुत सारी चीज़ें बदल जाने वाली. अब आगे आने वाले क्या हो मैं प्रेडिक्ट नहीं कर सकता हूँ, नहीं मैं कोई बायस्ड ओपिनियन अपना बना सकता हूँ कि आगे यही होगा. लेकिन जिस तरह से, जिस डायरेक्शन में चीज़ें जा रही हैं, बहुत सारा स्कोप है कि अगर आपका जर्नलिज्म बहुत इंडिपेंडेंट माइंडेड है, बहुत फियरलेस है, तो उस पर लगाम लगाने का स्कोप पैदा हो जाएगा. रूल्स, ऐसा गवर्नमेंट को रूल्स छूट देंगे कि वो आपसे कहे कि नहीं, ये फेक न्यूज़ की ये कैटेगरी में आता है, इसलिए इसको आपको उतारना पड़ेगा अपनी वेबसाइट से. और रूल्स ऐसे हैं, आप कोर्ट में भी जाएंगे, वो खैर कोर्ट में चैलेंज किया जा सकता है, लेकिन वो एक लंबी स्टोरी है. इसके बरक्स फिर मैं वापस उसी दौर में जाता हूं जब राजीव गांधी प्रधानमंत्री थे. इस गवर्नमेंट से कहीं ज्यादा मेजोरिटी उनको थी. 303 इस गवर्नमेंट के पास हैं, उनके पास 400 से ज्यादा पार्लियामेंटेरियंस, मेंबर्स ऑफ पार्लियामेंट थे. और राजीव गांधी की सरकार को अंदर से ही चैलेंज मिलने लगा था विश्वनाथ प्रताप सिंह से. वो एक पावर सेंटर के तौर पे अंदर से इमर्ज कर रहे थे, जिनको सपोर्ट करने वालों में एस गुरुमूर्ति थे और ये सब लोग थे. पूरा संघ परिवार था, लेफ्ट के लोग भी थे, ये सब था. फिर बाद में गवर्नमेंट भी बनी, उसमें नहीं जाते हैं. लेकिन उन्होंने एक बिल राजीव गांधी लेके आए थे, द डिफेमेशन बिल. और डिफेमेशन बिल बहुत ही रूथलेस था और बहुत ही ड्रैकोनियन बिल था. उस दौर में उतनी ज्यादा मेजोरिटी होने के बावजूद रामनाथ गोयनका और तमाम एडिटर्स इंडियन एक्सप्रेस के, बाकी दूसरे न्यूज़पेपर्स के से लेकर के और ट्रेनी रिपोर्टर तक, वो सब इंडिया गेट में इकट्ठा हुए थे। और मीडिया कोर ने, जर्नलिस्ट ने फोर्स किया राजीव गांधी सरकार को, इतनी मेजॉरिटी से जो आई थी, कि वो उसको वापस लेना पड़ा। आज कोई सड़क पर चू नहीं बोलता है। 3 एडिटर्स के खिलाफ FIR हुआ है जो मणिपुर गए थे, भारत भूषण, सीमा गुहा और संजय कपूर। फैक्ट फाइंडिंग के लिए क्राउड फंडिंग के जरिए एडिटर्स गिल्ड ऑफ इंडिया की तरफ से they went all the way to Manipur to do some sort of a fact finding, and they came out with a report. What happens next? There was an FIR against them. FIR का मतलब ये आप गिरफ्तार अभी तक नहीं हुए हैं, गिरफ्तार भी हो सकते हैं। और बाकी मैं एग्जांपल अभी नहीं दूंगा कि कौन कौन जर्नलिस्ट जो है सिर्फ जर्नलिज्म करने की वजह से उनको परेशान किया गया। लेकिन एक बयान के अलावा शायद ऐसा कुछ नहीं होता है कि जिसे हम कहें जर्नलिस्ट, इंडिपेंडेंट माइंडेड जर्नलिस्ट। मैं एंटी गवर्नमेंट और प्रो गवर्नमेंट जर्नलिस्ट की बात नहीं कर रहा हूं, प्रो पीपल जर्नलिस्ट जो सिर्फ जनता की बात करें, उनकी तरफ से बहुत ज्यादा कोई हलचल नहीं। तो मैं अपनी बात यहीं खत्म करूंगा। ये बहुत ही डार्क और बहुत ही सोबर नोट पर खत्म कर रहा हूं बात में, लेकिन जब आसपास की स्थितियां कुछ इस तरह की हों तो मैं ब्राइट एंड चर्पी, आई कांट अफोर्ड टू बी ब्राइट एंड चर्पी एंड very hopeful. I would request all of you.
Well, I will add some points what Rajesh has said.
Yes, please.
In fact, big concepts that I will like to mention to you. Traditionally, it used to be journalism of verification. हमारे facts को verify करते थे, first source, second source, third source से, until unless we are convinced that this is truthful fact. So that was the age of journalism of verification. नेक्स्ट फेज आया जब मार्केट कंपटीशन आया और ब्रेकिंग न्यूज का कंसेप्ट आया। ब्रेकिंग न्यूज में था कि दे वांटेड टू ब्रेक द स्टोरी इमीडिएटली बिकॉज ऑफ मार्केट कंपटीशन, एंड दिस हेडलाइन जर्नलिज्म टू लार्ज एक्सटेंट डिस्ट्रॉयड द जर्नलिज्म ऑफ वेरिफिकेशन। आपने फिर वेरिफिकेशन का जो है वो कोई कोशिश ही नहीं करी, जैसी स्टोरी आई आपने ब्रेक करनी शुरू कर दी। तो ये मार्केट कंपटीशन कमर्शियलाइजेशन वाले कंसेप्ट आया। एक तीसरा कंसेप्ट है कि जर्नलिज्म ऑफ अफर्मेशन। आप एक पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन लेते हैं और लोग को ग्रिल करते हैं कि आपकी पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन से एग्री करें। चैनल्स ऐसे हैं जिनकी पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन नोन है और उस पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन से जो है वो सारा का सारा वो अपनी पॉलिटिक्स कंडक्ट करते हैं। तो दीज 3 concepts are, I think, very very important, that journalism of verifications, journalism of assertion and journalism of affirmation. तो ये जो एफर्मेशन जर्नलिज्म है, इट्स डोमिनेटिंग टुडे। कि न्यूज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से एक पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन लेते हैं और इस पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन से ही वो जो है पूरा जर्नलिज्म को प्रैक्टिस करते हैं। सो जस्ट आई वांटेड टू ऐड दीज कांसेप्ट्स। नाउ वी आर ओपन फॉर योर क्वेश्चंस।
सर, मेरा क्वेश्चन, आप जैसे कि आप सब कहते हैं कि ब्रेकिंग न्यूज तो बन गया है, कंपटीशन बहुत होती है, एंड डायरेक्टली अब देखा जाए तो जो जर्नलिज्म है वो बिजनेस की तरह हो गया। तो ऐसे चीज में सच को कैसा फाइंड करना है और सच के साथ कैसा खड़े होना है विदाउट आवर ओपिनियन, मिक्सचर ऑफ अदर ओपिनियंस एंड बाहर के इन्फ्लुएंस आए बिना।
देखो वही हुआ ना कि ऐसा कि 90s में जब लिबरल इकोनॉमी आई तो मीडिया में जो राजेश जी ने मेंशन किया था कि इंफोटेनमेंट का आया, मतलब जो है तो न्यूज ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो पहले पब्लिक सर्विस एंटरप्राइज होते थे, दे कन्वर्टेड इनटू द बिजनेस एंटरप्राइज जिनका मकसद था प्रॉफिट करने। 90s में कमर्शियलाइजेशन शुरू हुआ व्हेन न्यूज मीडिया फ्रॉम पब्लिक सर्विस एंटरप्राइज इट गॉट ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड इनटू प्रॉफिट मेकिंग बिजनेस वेंचर। और न्यूज जो पहले एक सोशल प्रोडक्ट होता था, इट पैकेज ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन, वो एक प्रोडक्ट बन गया। You have to sell it. It's like Pepsi and Coke. News became product. ये ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन जो है वो उस दौर में आए, 90s के दौर में, जब न्यू इकोनॉमी आई। Yes, Doctor ji, nice seeing you. Please go ahead. John, please go ahead.
Right, okay. Last person बोला था मैंने नहीं बोलता हूँ जब I started journalism in 1969 उसमें लोग जो हमारे वो सभी लोगों के थे डॉक्टर स्टेशन चलाते थे उनका बहुत ही साफ तरीके से
So
बताया
you're
गया
not audible.
हाँ सर धीमे से आ रही है आवाज
John, your voice is breaking in fact. It's not-
वो क्या था
नहीं, वो
तो-
कान में जो आपने लगाया ना, उस वजह से शायद ये जो इस वजह से ठीक नहीं आ रही आवाज. इफ यू हैव अ माइक्रोफोन, प्लीज यूज इट.
I have a microphone, but you need to answer this. You don't have a second. Actually, I'll ask later.
No, please go ahead. Please go ahead. We would like to hear from you.
I'll speak later. I have to take the toilet.
John,
आप बोलिए.
Some problem. But okay, why not why should you just say? I thought it was excellent of you to correctly describe the situation because there are a information about the past. And people I'm not sure what has changed. Has the market changed? Or has the ownership changed? The ownership was always been business. It was Tata's, it was Williams, it was Goldman's, it was the rubber business in the south. It was Artis in South India. So this country was always there. But the relationship between the business and the Victorian, that has changed. Now, the businessman himself is the editor in one ways and one. And then he uses it and he sends his advice to politicians and others. I think that is the second change. The Victorians are also always there. You need to correctly stop this. Stop this was going to insert a two issues. Stop this was possibly change when that play. The full page was redone because somebody died, one fallen, so we got quick, we think on the day. So but now this clone, I don't know what me. Those things are the distractions and problem, but also the news itself has no value now. Opinions are what to sell. And they're also not honest opinions. I rest my case. Also, let me apologize. I'm 75, but please don't make questions over them or here into this letter.
Good evening. May I ask a question, please?
Yes, please, Nitish ji, go ahead.
Sir, my question is towards Rajesh Joshi, sir. Joshi, sir, till little while back, there was at least apparently one channel on television which people used to feel that it is giving contra view of whatever is happening on the other channels, right? But the developments that have been there in media, today probably that channel is also lost. It is most probably not there. Now the senior media managers have always been there, are there today, and shall remain in future also, whether it's editors of 60s, 70s, or editors of today, 2000s. John Dayal sir, you, me, I am also quite old. We are probably going to be history very, very soon, or if we are not already. I am also 60 plus, 62 plus. We are probably history, and now, why is it that today's media managers are afraid or are not bringing forth the facts, as you have rightly said, कि सत्य नहीं तथ्य चाहिए था. तो तथ्य आज क्यों नहीं आ रहे हैं? क्यों? Why the backbone of the fourth estate is breaking? Is it? I mean, I would like to hear from you, please, because I feel there is money involved also. But in any case, my opinion doesn't matter. So, and then who's responsible for downgrading the fourth estate to such a level that probably today we cannot call it to be a true pillar of democracy? And also, my third and last question is, what is your opinion? Was the earlier system good when you started your career, or is the present system good? I mean, once again, present system also must be having some advantages, disadvantages, plus and minus. So I would like your considered views on this, please.
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
there is, thank you so much. There's no neat cut between when I started my career and now. There's no neat cut. Things evolve, things change, and we witness that change. We have to live with that change. I can't live in nostalgia, good old days when there used to be 3, 4 newspapers and such a great time we had as reporters, our editors,
true.
of freedom and all that. We can't live in the past. The present situation is that we have to deal with it, with the whatever the political circumstances there are, and technological challenges. Artificial intelligence, for example. I'm not scared of it. Any technology, any new technology is resisted initially. Computers. When Rajiv Gandhi talked about computers, editors like Prabhas Joshi resisted it. So many other people, Gandhians and other people resisted it. So computers are going to eat up our jobs and all that. We resist technology. Now we are resisting this technology, this new demon, if I may call that, artificial intelligence. So I'm not saying that those times were bright times, but there was a certain kind of innocence. Now look back and you find that there was a certain kind of innocence. Even the rulers were a little, they were ruthless. I'm not saying we had witnessed the emergency, the ruthless emergency. But there was a certain, I don't have a word to explain that, certain kind of innocence that despite emergency, Indira Gandhi called for an election. She was not under any pressure. She could have been a dictator for all her life, for next 5, 10, 15 years. But she did not. She lost the election and came back and all that. So I'm really not saying that past was great and we are living in gloomy times right now and future is going to be darker. I'm not saying that, but it's a struggle. It's a constant struggle. So far as your question about editors or journalists not, raising the voice. I remember when Donald Trump won the election the first time, I think it was 16. He became the president of the United States of America, and the next day or a few days later, editors, prominent editors of the US, they wrote a letter, editors body, directly addressing Donald Trump. Mr. President, I mean, the crux of the letter was, I'm not, there's no verbatim this thing, I'm not quoting from the letter, but the gist was, you look after the political agenda, you look after your politics, you are the president, you don't challenge that. But as far as our editorial agenda is concerned, we will set that agenda. News agenda, we will set. Do not interfere, in as many words. Do we have editors or journalists with spines of steel who can stand up and raise their hand and say, you cannot set our news agenda. We are capable enough of doing that. We don't have that. There are a few independent-minded journalists. I'm not saying everybody has started crawling. There are some people, but they have become overcautious. Overcautious. I'm not going to name any names, but people who are known for their pro-corporate, pro-Israel, maybe pro-America, maybe, but still to a large extent fair journalism or informed journalism. Let's say, let's put it that way. Even they are very cautious in asking questions. So this is the situation right now. I don't know whether I have been able to answer your question, but since I told you in the beginning, you know, my profession has taught me to ask questions, not to answer them. I would like to hear from people like John Dayal. Yes, please, go ahead.
Certainly, you have answered my question. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Can I interrupt?
Sir,
Rajesh ji, can you hear me?
Oh, yes,
Yes, yes.
yes, please go ahead.
Yes, yes. The first and foremost question is of credibility. एक्चुअली अभी जो निशीत जी ने कहा कि जैसे कि एडिटर्स होते थे पहले, वो अपना डिसीजन खुद लेते थे. मेरा एक एक्सपीरियंस है 2014 का. 2014 में मैं एक चैनल में था, तो वहां पर एडिटर की जगह एक एडिटर एंड सेम टाइम सीईओ बनाया गया. मैं नाम भी ले लेता हूँ, सुधीर चौधरी. तो उन्हें वहां पे बनाया गया, उन्हें सीईओ और साथ में एडिटर भी. अब वो दोनों की जो अलग अलग कॉन्ट्राडिक्टरी रोल्स हैं, एक का है कि पूरा पैसा मैनेज करना और एक का है कि एडिटोरियल वो करना. तो वहां पे प्रॉब्लम हुई और हमने देखा कि 4-5-6 महीने बाद ही वो नवीन जिंदल वाले केस में फंस भी गए थे. तो वहां से ये जो, और वो ये कहते भी थे कि हम एजेंडा के तहत काम कर रहे हैं. तो वहां से ये जो डाउन जो शुरू हुआ कि सारी की सारी जो एडिटर्स की जो पावर्स थी वो शिफ्ट हो गई मीडिया मैनेजिंग में, मीडिया मैनेज करने लगा. तो जैसे आपने बीबीसी पे काम किया, वहां पर आपने देखते थे कि आप यहाँ पर कंस्ट्रेन है कि एडवर्टाइजिंग पैसा चाहिए तो तभी चलेगा. वहां पे बीबीसी ट्रस्ट से चलता है और ट्रस्ट का पैसा शायद वहां पे पब्लिक ही देती है, जिससे बीबीसी पे ये कंस्ट्रेन नहीं रहता था कि एडवर्टाइजिंग का. ऐसा कोई मॉडल इंडिया में क्यों नहीं डेवलप हो पाया?
मैं
राजेश जी.
जी जी, आप अपना माइक को कर ले. हाँ, जॉन दयाल is trying to say something. Please, John. Go ahead.
According to a third, come from the government. They come from the foreign office of the United Kingdom government. It is in many ways a part of the foreign policy endeavors of the British government. It regulates and shapes world opinion. It's an instrument of foreign policy. To that extent, its role as a provider of information is reduced. And this is true of any agency which has a role. For instance, Al Jazeera. Al Jazeera has a pretty big share of the foreign government. And therefore, it presents, in my view, as position as Russia 24 was a French or Russia or whatever. So, a bit of idea, but there's so much better than what we have. To that extent, I agree.
So, I mean, if you want me to talk about the BBC, I can, but why go down that path? Because BBC, BBC is a, I work for the BBC, but I know the organization inside out, and its shortcomings also, its high points also. But one thing I must say, that when Prakash Javadekar became the information minister in 2014, he was on record saying that we will transform Prasar Bharati, we will reorganize Prasar Bharati on the lines of the BBC. He made a statement in front of the media, but then nothing happened. BBC is a kind of a benchmark of free media, you know, but Government of India never had the conviction or guts, whatever you call it, to set Prasar Bharati free of its control. As far as the BBC is concerned, there is some sort of autonomy because it's not governed, it's not controlled by Parliament. It is answerable to Parliament, but it's not controlled by Parliament. There's a royal charter, and the royal charter says, and it's in black and white, that the BBC, I should have quoted it from, it was somewhere in my laptop, the whole charter. I mean, I'm giving you the gist. It says that the BBC will not listen to any government official, including ministers. It will, the BBC bosses are responsible to keep their editorial freedom intact. You know, this is in black and white. The Royal Charter gives that freedom to the BBC. And that is the reason why when there was a war between Britain and Argentina, the BBC anchors would say Argentinian forces and British forces, not like our forces and enemy forces. And Margaret Thatcher was quite peeved. She was very, very upset with the BBC's coverage. And she said it on record in Parliament as if they are serving the enemy's, purpose. So to that extent, BBC keeps criticizing its own government. I mean, the British government also, and ruthlessly. But you're right, John, when you say that they sort of serve, you know, they are like part of the government. They are not part of the government, but it's a stated policy of the BBC World Service.
Part of the system.
No. It's a stated policy, a printed policy of the BBC World Service to take British values to the world. So this is what it does. When Iraq war happened, I was not satisfied. We were not satisfied, a bunch of people, with the coverage. It was biased. The whole concept of embedded journalists, it's not independent journalism. You know, the British Broadcasting Corporation sent its correspondents to Iraq, embedded with the US Army. But coming back to his question about one gentleman, आपने किसी का नाम लिया था, लेकिन ये पहली बार नहीं हुआ जो आप कह रहे हैं CEO बन गया. हर एडिटर जो एडिटर की पोजीशन पे पहुंचता है, यहाँ तक कि अरुण शौरी भी, अभी उनकी नई किताब आई है, समथिंग ऑफ लॉस्ट कॉजेस. आप अपना वो माइक ऑफ कर लेंगे तो ठीक रहेगा. चैंपियन ऑफ लॉस्ट कॉजेस या कुछ, उसमें उन्होंने लिखा है he became very close to Ramnath Goenka. Why? Ramnath Goenka used to, scold him. तेरे बाप का अखबार है, इस तरह की भाषा में खुद कोट किया उसने. तो आप जब एडिटर को कोई मालिक पैसा लगाता है तो उससे वो चाहता है कि वह इसको कोई चैरिटी में नहीं देता है. लेकिन वो वैल्यूज जो हैं जर्नलिज्म की, इंडिपेंडेंट जर्नलिज्म की वैल्यूज को क्या आप डिफेंड कर सकते हैं? एज लॉन्ग एज यू सिट इन दैट चेयर ऑफ एडिटर, आर यू केपेबल इनफ टू डिफेंड दोस जर्नलिज्म? आई डोंट वांट टू नेम नेम्स, लेकिन ऐसे बहुत सारे लोग या ऑर्गेनाइजेशन जो अपने इंडिपेंडेंट जर्नलिज्म के बारे में बात करते हैं, मुझे मालूम है कि दे स्टार्टेड काउटाइंग, मतलब झुक के उन पर जब प्रेशर आया तो उन्होंने कॉलम्स विथड्रॉ कर लिए. अब छोड़िए, मैं उसका नाम नहीं लूंगा, उससे बहुत कोई फायदा नहीं है. तो कहने का मतलब ये है कि जो इंस्टीट्यूशन है जर्नलिज्म का, ये तो टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया ने जर्नलिज्म का एडिटर का इंस्टीट्यूशन खत्म किया था. ये आपके उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की बात नहीं है. और टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया के प्रोप्राइटर्स ने बाकायदा कहा, वी डोंट नीड एडिटर्स, वी नीड सीईओज. हमको सबसे पहले अपना जो स्पेस है वो एक विज्ञापन के लिए बेचना है, खबर तो आती रहेगी. ये सब रिकॉर्ड की बात है. तो ये सिर्फ टेलीविजन के आने से खत्म नहीं हुआ है. इससे पहले न्यूज़पेपर्स को धीरे धीरे इरोड किया था. और ये एक न्यूज़पेपर ह्यूमन राइट्स का चैंपियन हुआ करता था दिल्ली में. ह्यूमन राइट्स नाउ नाम से दिल्ली में कॉन्सर्ट किया था. स्प्रिंगस्टीन, कौन कौन यहाँ पे आए थे. ह्यूमन राइट्स. और अब ह्यूमन राइट्स का कितना वायलेशन हो जाए, उन्हीं के टेलीविजन चैनल में, उन्हीं के अखबार तो छोड़ दीजिए, टेलीविजन चैनल्स में स्प्रेड किया जाता है. ह्यूमन राइट्स को कोई उस तरह से इशू नहीं बना जाता है. लेकिन एक था, ह्यूमन राइट्स नाम से कैंपेन चला था, अमन की आशा नाम से कैंपेन चला था. सो थिंग्स चेंज, पीपल चेंज. climate change.
सर राजेश जोशी सर ने बहुत ही उनका लेक्चर रियली बहुत ही यूजफुल रहा। और जैसा कि मैं समझता हूं कि आप लोग सभी लोग सीनियर हैं, और मेरे ज़माने में भी ऐसा होता था कि जो भी एक जर्नलिस्ट, चूंकि हम जर्नलिस्ट हैं, देश के नागरिक हैं, हम किसी न किसी आइडियोलॉजी से और फिलोसफी से जुड़े हुए होते हैं, तो हमारे ज़माने में भी ऐसा होता था कि जब हम अखबार में हुआ करते थे कि जो कुछ उनकी न्यूज़ होती थी या स्टोरी होती थी, लगभग वो छप जाती थी। आज की डेट में वो नहीं हो पा रहा है। दूसरा है कि मुझे लगता है कि कमर्शियलाइजेशन ऑफ जर्नलिज्म जो है आज की डेट में इंडिया में हम उससे आगे निकल चुके हैं। आज हम सिर्फ एक प्रोडक्ट की तरह जर्नलिज्म को हम नहीं देखते हैं। अब इसमें बहुत सारी चीजें, जो एक प्रेशर है गवर्नमेंट का, आज की डेट में जो प्रेशर है उसमें हम सब लोग हेल्पलेस हैं। तो राजेश सर, मैं ये आपसे पूछना चाहता हूं कि क्या ये सिर्फ जो डिटोरेशन है जर्नलिज्म में, ये सिर्फ इंडिया में है या वर्ल्ड वाइड है? एक दूसरा, अगर इंडिया में है तो इसके ट्रैक पर आने की कब तक उम्मीद की जा सकती है?
देखिए, ये तो मैं नहीं मानता हूं कि हिंदुस्तान में हालत इतने खराब हो चुके हैं कि अब यहाँ कुछ सुधरेगा नहीं, ये सब है। आप नॉर्थ कोरिया में चले जाइए, वहाँ कहाँ इंडिपेंडेंट प्रेस है? तुर्की में, बहुत सारी कंट्रीज में, सऊदी अरेबिया में भी जिस तरह से जर्नलिस्ट को परेशान किया जाता है, उस लिहाज से तो
सर राजेश सर, मैं सऊदी अरेबिया की और वैसे कंट्री की जहां बिल्कुल एक डिक्टेटरशिप है, जहां किंग होते हैं, मैं बिल्कुल उनकी बात नहीं कर रहा हूं। मैं वर्ल्ड के सबसे बड़े डेमोक्रेसी की बात कर रहा हूं, और जिस फेज में हम हुआ करते थे, हम उससे अपने को कोरिलेट करते हैं। सर
देखिए, यहाँ
राजेश जी, your concluding remarks, because we
हाँ टाइम
next speaker is waiting. Your concluding remarks, no problem.
बस मैं सिर्फ इतना ही कहना चाह रहा हूँ, कुछ इसमें ज्यादा ऐड नहीं करना है। हमारे सामने अमेरिका और ब्रिटेन का उदाहरण है, और ज्यादातर उदाहरण वही लेते हैं। वहां छोड़ दीजिए, आप नेपाल का उदाहरण क्यों नहीं लेते हैं? आप पाकिस्तान का उदाहरण क्यों नहीं लेते हैं? एंटी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट जर्नलिज्म जिसे कहा जाता है, वो वहां एग्जिस्ट करता है। हिंदुस्तान में भी एंटी एस्टेब्लिशमेंट जर्नलिज्म अभी है, ऐसा नहीं है कि यहाँ खत्म हो गया है। लेकिन जो हिंदुस्तान की तरफ जैसे लोग, इंडिया की तरफ जैसे लोग देखते थे, उस तरह से अब नहीं देखते। उस इंडेक्स में इंडिया का नंबर काफी नीचे आ गया है, क्योंकि वो जो जगह है बहुत सारी एडिटर्स ने, प्रोप्राइटर्स ने, मालिकान ने छोड़ दी है। और सत्ता का ये नेचर होता है, चाहे कांग्रेस की सत्ता हो या कम्युनिस्टों की सत्ता हो या बीजेपी की सत्ता हो, जितना आप सीड करेंगे, जितनी जगह छोड़ेंगे, उतनी जगह पे वो फैलेंगे। शुक्रिया। जी सुभाष जी, मैं कह चुका हूं अपनी बात।
ठीक है, थैंक यू।
आप सब लोगों का बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। और
Thanks.
इंक्लूडिंग रिमार्क्स अगर कौन किसी को बोलना है तो वो जिन लेडी ने शुरू किया था वो कह दें, या आप प्रोफेसर साहब कह दें, ताकि एक फॉर्मल इसकी वाइंडिंग अप हो जाए।
Yes, Bakul,
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you so much, Mr. Joshi, for such a beautiful session. I think we all learned so much, so many experiences. And thank you so much for being with us for the first session. And now we'll head towards our second session. Second session is all about the core concepts of writing for the media. And our resource person is Mr. Anjan Chakraborty. So welcome, sir. Mr. Chakraborty is co-founder and CEO of Estroy Infocom. He has worked at ABP Digital, online producer, Reuters.com, The Statesman, and the Hindustan Times. His core area of expertise include online journalism, data journalism, content strategy, content innovation, SEO, social media, web designing, and web project management and quality analyst. So thank you so much, sir, for being with us. And I'd like to welcome you for this second session. So over to you, Mr. Chakraborty.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible.
Yes,
Yes,
sir, you are audible.
Yes or no? Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Srimani, for that introduction. Before I begin, I will take the tail from the first session. And I was listening to Rajesh sir, and I was listening to the conversation of, whether media is really broken, whether it's only in India or whether it's a worldwide phenomenon. And I think that is something that we have been deliberating for almost last 5 years or more, and we will continue to deliberate on that. As journalists, as working journalists, or as budding journalists, we all will be debating that for the years to come as well. And I think just to add on some points, I think the journalism is not broken. It's the media business that's broken. I think that if we can keep that in mind, I think it will make us easier to understand what's happening in the world of journalism. Journalism is not broken. It's the media business that's unfortunately broken. And as long as we do not find an alternative stream of revenue other than our dependence on advertising across all mediums of journalism, it will be very difficult to make journalism thrive and survive in the coming years. So with that, if I have the host control, I would like to share my screen and begin the session on concepts of writing.
Done, sir.
Thank you, Saket ji. So today, the session that I will be having with you all is about the core concepts of writing for media. And I hope this is an interactive session, and I will be asking questions, and I will try to pick your brains and try to understand what writing for media in today's world is really all about. Before we can start discussing the concepts of writing, we need to first understand, why do we write? Why do we write? Why do we write a news report? Why do we write a feature? Why do we write a fiction? Why do we write a poem? Because we want it to be read. हम लिखते इसलिए हैं क्योंकि हम चाहते हैं कि कोई उसे पढ़े. Because without the reader, without the audience, no matter how good I write, it is useless. So we write for the reader. We write for the audience. We write so that people can read us and people can understand what we are trying to convey, whether it's a news report about an information, whether it's an opinion, it's an analysis, whatever it is, we write because we want somebody to read it. So we'll begin the session on this note, and we'll understand. I'm just sharing my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So till 20 years back, the onus was on the audience to find news content. 20 years back, readers had to find the news content that they wanted to read or view, whether it was on a newspaper or a magazine, whether it was on radio or whether it was on television. So journalists used to write, an audience had to find the content they want to read, whether it was a newspaper report, whether it was the edit page, whether it's a magazine, whether it's an entertainment magazine, business magazine, political magazine, whether it's the radio, they used to know which time the news will be on, or whether it's the television, they used to know which time which particular program is on. So it was left to the audience to find the news content. Now it is not the same. In today's world, news content has to find an audience. It's the other way around. And this journey of 20 years has happened primarily because of three technological disruptions. Number one is the penetration of internet in our country. Number two, social media and the proliferation of social media users in our country and also across the world. And third, of course, is the smartphone. We don't actually call it a device anymore. The smartphone is not just a device anymore. It's now a body part. जैसे हमारे हाथ, पैर, आँख, ऐसे हमारे body parts हैं. The mobile phone is now a body part. We keep the mobile phone for, I would say, whatever time that we are awake, whether it is 16 hours or 18 hours a day that we are awake. Practically the mobile phone is in our hands, in our pocket, or in front of our desk, or in beside my bed. It's there. It's an extension of our body part. So these three revolutions or disruptions, the penetration of internet, the proliferation of social media use, and the smartphone, what that has led to, that news content today has to find an audience. There are so many choices and so little time. So that automatically leads to the question, what do audiences really read? I will do reverse engineering in this class, okay, before I tell you the concepts of writing in today's world. We need to know, what do audiences really read? Anybody has an answer? What do readers really read today? क्या पढ़ते हैं लोग? Is there a simple answer?
No, it is complex.
Sorry?
So people nowadays are consuming most probably bad news, I think, because they're enjoying it.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. Yes.
जो हमारे सामने परोसा जाता है, हम उसे पढ़ने के लिए मजबूर हैं.
Sir, I feel that today audiences read what they want to read. They just search for the news they actually, they want to read. So sometimes audience decides what they want to read.
They want to read they want to read subject of their choices.
Yeah,
आप ये नहीं क्या आप हम क्या दिखाना चाहते हैं, अब वो जो देख रहा है उसने वो देख लेता है स्मार्टफोन पे, जो उसकी चॉइस है, जो उसकी पसंद है, वो जाके देख लेता है.
So
the things which can benefit which will benefit in any ways, that is of their interest. It can be financially, it can be psychologically, anyway. But I'm sure that benefit is the main thing any consumer looks at, and readers or audiences nowadays are consumers.
Absolutely right. So all of you are right in some way. So I would put it in a very simple way. Something that affects you and your life, that's what you read, isn't it? Because there are so many choices. There are hundreds of television channels, English, Hindi, other Indian languages. There are hundreds and thousands of news websites. There are news aggregators. There is social media. There is so much happening around the world and so much choice that you have. But eventually, what we read is something that affects me and my life. That's what I read. And I think that's basically what everybody does. I mean, something that affects him or her or their life, depending on what they are doing. Somebody is a doctor. He might be interested to read stuff related to his particular specialization, or something related to hospitals, healthcare, new drugs and stuff like that. If somebody is in business, that person would be definitely interested to read about what are the things that are happening in his particular industry and in his particular stream of business, whether they are government policies, announcements that may or may not affect his business. So everything is ultimately related to something that affects you and your life. And life means not just professional life, but also personal life. So both, that's what we read in a simple way, if we can say it. Now that is what we know, but the question is, how do we read? How do audiences read? We know that audiences today read something that directly affects them or their life, professional, personal, psychological, whatever. The question is how. The next question automatically comes is, how do they read in today's world? So here's a short video. This is a video that was packaged by the Wall Street Journal, and they did this video on how the mobile phone has completely changed the news industry. They did this video a few years back. If you could just listen in.
The audio of the video is not coming.
Still not able to hear. I'm not able to listen to the audio.
Yes, sir. No, it's not audible.
There is no audio.
Excuse me, Mr. Anjan, we are not able to hear the audio.
Sir, so we are not able to hear the audio of the video. So please connect to the audio.
We are not able to hear you as well now.
Perhaps there is some technical glitches.
You can tell us the gist of the story?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Anjan, you can tell us the gist of the story.
Oh, can you hear me? Is my voice audible?
You are here.
Yes, your voice is audible.
Yes,
My
sir,
voice
you are
is audible. Okay, so the video, you are able to see the video, but you can't hear you are not able to hear the audio.
Right, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so I'll just
I was
give you
not
a-
able to see also.
It is stopped. It is stopped actually.
I have stopped now. I have paused the video. So
Sir, if possible, after the session, if you can share that in the group, we'll be able to.
I'll share the, this
That
is
would
in,
be real. That would be really nice of you, sir.
yeah,
Thank you.
this is on YouTube, so I'll share the link of this video. So this video basically talks about how the mobile phone, how the smartphone basically changed the way the readers consume news. So earlier, readers used to come to pick up a newspaper. They used to get a newspaper at their home, or they would.
Anjan sir, better to stop sharing a screen so that we could see you on a screen, sir.
Okay, is that okay now?
Yes, yes.
So the basic crux of the video is that how the smartphone, when that smartphone came around across the globe, how that completely changed the way readers consumed content. So earlier readers used to buy a newspaper or a magazine or watch a particular television channel or a particular program in that television channel, or they can even go to a particular website if they knew that this is the website they wanted to go to. But what happened after the smartphone now, that everything, there were so many choices available, readers used to just go to Facebook to look at what is happening. They used to just go to Twitter to look at what's happening. They would just click on Google News and find what's happening. So if the entire habit of how journalists used to write for a consumer or for a reader who was a dedicated person, that loyalty factor of a reader towards a newspaper masthead, towards a magazine masthead, towards a particular television channel, towards a particular news anchor and his or her particular program started changing. What happened was, now consumers were looking at news on their smartphones and from all over the place. And slowly what happened, every news organization around the world started losing what they used to call our loyal reader, loyal viewer, because the loyalties started shifting, so many choices, and as a result of that, everybody was looking at everything, and they were picking up things from wherever they thought or they liked, and they could share and they could talk about. So that was something that happened post the smartphone era. But has the news industry, or did the news industry prepare for it? Did the news industry on the whole was prepared to look at this shifting loyalties? Earlier, news industry were prepared for shifting loyalties from brand A to brand B. कि आज टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया का रीडर है, वो टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया छोड़ दिया, हिंदुस्तान टाइम्स पढ़ने लग गया. So they were looking for how a reader was changing royalty from brand A to brand B. Now, after smartphone, the readers or viewers are not changing loyalties from brand A to B. They are changing from brand A to brand F, from brand F to brand X, from brand X to brand C, from brand C to brand G. They are all over the place. And all of this is not just news brands. People were just looking at social media to get the news. They were not going to a particular loyal traditional media outlet to get the news they wanted. They were continuously shifting through this. So as a result, the news industry was not prepared. So when I write an opinion piece in a newspaper that I can write for, say, 2,000 words, it can come out on the opinion page, 2,000 words. And when that same thing was put up on a website, the exact 2,000 words used to be put out, right? Just copy, paste, and put it out on the website. But that's not how people read. The way people read a newspaper or a magazine, they don't read the same thing on their mobile phones. There is less time. The screen size is small. It's 3-inch by 5-inch device. A newspaper is like this big. A magazine is also this big. The TV screen is this big. Now the TV screen, just think of how television had to adapt. The TV screen, they used to know that, okay, everybody has a TV set in their home, right? And it was a minimum of 19 inches or 17 inches का तो होगा ही उनके पास टीवी. तो उस फ्रेम में मुझे फिट करना है इंफॉर्मेशन, right? And there used to be these bands at the bottom, bands at the top, bands on the left, bands on the right. Ultimately, anchor or news जो है बीच में, they would cover about what? 60% of the screen. Rest 40% is advertising, ticker, this and that. Now that screen is into your smartphone, 3 by 5. Now think of that screen size now. और उसमें जो 60% वो एंकर या डिबेट या न्यूज जो पढ़ रहा है, वो is that legible? The news industry was not prepared for that. Neither the television industry nor the print industry was prepared. So they could not adapt to this behavioral change, and that's why they lagged, and websites started catching up. Websites realize that people are going to Facebook to read the news. Every year, there is a report that comes out from Reuters Institute. It's in collaboration with Oxford University. They call it the Digital News Report. Every year, they take it out. And they look at this changing behavior, and they find that practically in every country, the source of news, the one source that's number one, is social media. It's not a newspaper, it's not a magazine, it's not a television channel, it's not even a website. Number one source of information is now social media. And we haven't adapted. So how do I write? My question was, why I wanted to show you that video was, first, we wanted to understand what do readers read. It's something that affects them, their life, personally, financially, professionally. That's what they read. Second is, how do they read? They read it on a 3x5-inch screen, practically. They watch, when they are watching a video, that's also on a 3x5-inch screen. Only thing is in a landscape mode. So watching, viewing, reading in a 3x5-inch screen, the way I used to write for a newspaper, where I would program, the way I would actually structure a news program, can it be the same when that reader is on a smartphone? It cannot be. It cannot be. That's why social media has come on top, because social media has adapted. They knew how exactly to adapt the consumer to my platform, to my mobile application. So we lagged behind. The entire media industry lagged behind. Are you able to see my screen again?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
So that automatically brings to the question, what do audiences really read? I said it's something that affects them, their personal life, financial life, professional life. Exactly what are those things? Number one, of course, consumption of news is primarily driven by relevance. It has to be relevant to that person. Now, every person may have different taste of what kind of news he or she wants to read, but it has to be relevant to that person. There are different audiences. Younger people might read certain type of content, older people might read certain type of content. Gender, men would read certain type of content, women might read certain type of content. So age, gender, also economic situation, economic status of that person will drive the relevance of the news content that he or she is reading. Everything is driven by relevance and that particular audience's taste. Number two, from the relevance is directly tied to sociability. What does that mean? That relevance factor is directly tied to sociability. Sociability means I am also trying to read that kind of stuff which I think that my friends, my family, they are also interested to know. It's not just my relevance, but I might know that my sister was telling me about this. Let me read this, and I would probably even share it with her. My friends were talking about this. I did not know, so I'll quickly Google and find out कि ये क्या हो रहा है. So relevance is also tied to sociability. कि मेरे आसपास के लोग किस चीज को लेके बात कर रहे हैं. मेरा फ्रेंड्स हैं, फैमिली मेंबर्स है, वो किस चीज को लेके बात कर रही है, या व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप में कहाँ से किसी ने कुछ डाल दिया, ये क्या चल रहा है. देन आई विल ट्राई टू फाइंड आउट समथिंग. तो इस रेलेवेंस इज डायरेक्टली टाइड टू सोशबिलिटी, कि हमारा आसपास के लोग, मेरे दोस्त, माय कॉलीग्स, my family, what are they talking about, what are this, is that something I don't know. There is something called the fear of missing out, हम लोग बोलते हैं, FOMO, कि ये लोग बात करें, मुझे तो ये पता ही नहीं है, ये नया एक ऐप आया है, इसके बारे में मेरे दोस्त बात कर रहे हैं, लेकिन मुझे तो पता ही नहीं है ये ऐप कैसे काम करता है, क्या करता है. आई विल ट्राई टू नो दैट. सो रेलेवेंस इज टाइड टू सोशबिलिटी.
टाइम पे तो ऐसे कुछ टाइम फिक्स
टाइमिंग का कुछ नहीं है हेलो
Sorry, somebody is saying something? Okay, so sociability is in turn tied to shareability. You know, we want to be seen as someone that who knows about it. हम लोग को ये एक ग्रेटिफिकेशन भी चाहिए होता है कि हाँ मुझे भी पता है, मुझे ये हो रहा है, then I'll quickly share it with my friends या family member या colleague. The social relevance, sociability is directly linked to shareability. That's what they read. कि ये मैं share कर दूंगा कि देखो भाई ऐसा हो रहा है. So this is the psychology of how audiences are reading. And as somebody said earlier, that people also has a random behavior of clicking on news stories that are just amusing, trivial, weird, with no obvious civic focus. There is also a peculiar behavior happening with the audiences, and this is happening because of the sheer choice that's available out there and the amount of time they are spending on just social media platforms. They click on random stories that is absolutely trivial, weird type के कुछ stories होते हैं, वो पढ़ते हैं in their free time. That is also something that happens, and this is also linked to the behavior of, you know, while I'm spending time of social media, just not looking at photographs and videos, I'm also looking at something that's very weird. शायद ये मुझे थोड़ा entertainment दे दे, थोड़ा मुझे I might laugh, my friends might laugh about it, like that. Hello, can somebody please mute? I think your mic is on.
Mr. Naresh Sharma, please mute you.
मैनेजमेंट कैसी है आजकल मौसम का पता लग गया पूरा शेड्यूल बनाया चलो मैं कहना आजकल 10 साल पहले या 20 साल पहले जो मैं गए थे उसको चलो नहीं पता था
Can you please
नरेश
mute your
शर्मा जी,
mic, Mr. Sharma? अपना
नरेश
mic
शर्मा जी
बंद
प्लीज,
करिए.
नरेश शर्मा जी प्लीज म्यूट कर लीजिए जी.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
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 Okay, thank you. Sorry. So on the whole, people want to stay informed about what goes on around them at the local, national, and international levels. On the whole, but again, relevance to themselves. That is very important. But the caveat, the big caveat here is they don't have too much time. That's the big caveat. Of all the things that I've said that audiences what do audiences really read, the caveat is they don't have too much time. Now, if that is the setting, now that we know what our audiences read, that leads to the question, how should I write? Earlier, I used to write because I wanted it to be read. Now I know what my audiences read, how they behave, thanks to the smartphone. Now comes the question, how should I write in today's world? If I have to grab the audience's attention, if I have to grab their engagement, if I have to make them loyal to my brand of journalism, to my brand of news content or my masthead, how do I make it? How do I ensure that audiences will read me, whether 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 they are reading me on any platform? And primarily when I talk about platforms, I'm talking about digital platforms, because people are continuously just reading on them. They're reading on Facebook, they're reading on Twitter, they're reading on Google, they're reading on websites, mobile applications, they're just reading on their smartphones. 80 to 85% of consumption of news is now happening just on digital devices and primarily the smartphones. So how should I write in order to make this audience read my content, read my news? The first and the foremost for any news story is catchy headlines. And I'm going to give you specific things that news writing should involve in today's world. Because catchy headlines is a very subjective term. When I say attention grabbing headlines that pique the curiosity and encourage readers to click and read further, it's a very subjective term. So I will give you very specific things that needs to be done with your headline of whatever story you are writing, whether you are writing a political story, whether you are writing a sports story, an entertainment, lifestyle, business, whatever story you are writing, whether you're writing a hard story or you're writing a feature story, it's important for each and every one of those stories. The first 3 words of your headline and the last 3 words of your headline are most important. Can someone tell me why? Why I am saying the first 3 words and the last 3 words of your headline is most important?
To catch the attention of the reader, and last line to make it interesting, which can satisfy the reader कि हाँ कुछ अच्छा पढ़ा.
तो मैंने कैविएट दिया था पिछले स्लाइड में दैट रीडर्स डोंट हैव टाइम, उनके पास ज़्यादा समय नहीं है. एंड ऐसा कई बार होता है कि जो हमारे रीडर हैं वो पूरा हेडलाइन ही नहीं पढ़ते हैं. वो हेडलाइन का पहला 1-2 शब्द, 3 शब्द और फिर हेडलाइन के एंड में जो 2-3 शब्द, सिर्फ वो पढ़ के वो समझते हैं कि मुझे ये स्टोरी आगे पढ़नी चाहिए कि नहीं. They don't even read the entire headline, and this is the reason that the first 3 words of your headline, चाहे आप किसी भी भाषा में लिखें, the first 3 words and the last 3 words are very important, क्योंकि रीडर्स का अटेंशन उस स्टोरी पे पहले हेडलाइन के 3 शब्द और उसी हेडलाइन के आखिरी 3 शब्द पे जाता है. They may not be reading the entire headline at all. और आइडियल हेडलाइन लेंथ, जैसे टिपिकल न्यूज़पेपर या मैगजीन का हेडलाइन होता है कि वन सिंगल वर्ड कैन बिकम द हेडलाइन, या फिर 2 words, 3 words कैन बिकम अ हेडलाइन. That is not a headline that's going to grab the attention of today's consumers, unfortunately, because most of them are reading it online, especially people in the age bracket of say 16 to 40. They have completely shifted attention to reading content just on digital devices. Post 40, they may still be reading newspapers, magazines, and they will still be saying what a fantastic headline Times of India has given, what a fantastic headline Hindu has given, what a fantastic headline Indian Express ने दिया है या किसी भी हिंदी अखबार ने दिया है. They don't have that time, that much amount of time to savor the headline of a magazine or a newspaper. So you need longer headlines, and the ideal length specifically 8 to 12 words. 8 से लेके 12 शब्दों का हेडलाइन होना चाहिए, लेकिन उसमें भी first 3 words and last 3 words, they are most important to grab the attention of my reader. Second, start every paragraph, whatever story I am writing, whichever whether it's a hard story, soft story, entertainment, sports, politics, crime, business, whatever, every paragraph needs to be, we need to begin every paragraph with interesting, enticing words, just like your headline. Again, the first 3 words of every paragraph should have important and enticing words, क्योंकि पैराग्राफ स्किप करके चले जाते हैं लोग. जैसे when they read that on a 3x5 inch device, 3 inch by 5 inch max, they will skip through, and their eyes will stop at the beginning of a paragraph. If the beginning of a paragraph, the first 3 words are interesting, they will read that paragraph. Otherwise, they will shift to the next paragraph. That is because समय नहीं है उनके पास. They don't have time. They are looking for something specific, and they are looking if they are at the beginning of your paragraph, and then they will read that entire paragraph. Otherwise, they won't. Paragraph length कितना होना चाहिए? What is the ideal paragraph length? in today's world 6 to 8 lines. And when I say 6 to 8 lines, these are not sentences, lines. क्योंकि मोबाइल में 6 से 8 लाइन का एक पैराग्राफ जितना स्क्रीन स्पेस लेता है, अगर उससे ज्यादा हो गया तो it will take up practically the entire screen and that is not easy to read on the eyes. तो 6 से 8 लाइन का अगर पैराग्राफ है, that is easy to read on a 3x5 inch screen, and then there is space and then the next paragraph. So that is a very, very key trick of how to make my reader read my story, continue reading my story, continue reading my narrative. And third, concise and scannable content. What does that mean? Readers skim content, जो मैंने पहले बताया. If they don't find the particular information they are looking for at the beginning of a sentence, they will skip the paragraph. Similarly, if your entire story, if you're writing a 500 word or 1,000 word or a 1,500 word story, say, these days in digital content, most stories are written in 200 words, max 300 words. But if there is a longer form of journalism that's being practiced, use ways to make your news report scannable. What do you mean by scannable? Use bullet points, use subheadings, just to give some visual relief to the reader when he or she is reading a long form content, a long form journalism content. So bullet points, subheadings, these are essential. These are not essential when you're writing for a newspaper, when you're writing for a magazine. But it is extremely essential when you are writing in today's world, which is the digital world, and you are consuming content primarily. My readers are consuming content primarily on digital devices, that too the mobile phone. So apart from text, this is the basic concept of writing in today's world. Whichever story you are writing, whichever way you are writing. Earlier, it used to be the style, the flair, depth of language, that used to be important. But now, the other things are important. Headlines, starting, ending, your paragraph starting, and how do you break up your story into bullet points, how you break up your stories into subheadings. That will determine if you are able to capture your audience's attention throughout the story, because the audience is reading it on a smartphone. Next question that automatically comes, that apart from text, earlier when I used to talk about writing for media, writing for the news media specifically, people used to only think about text, कि कैसे शब्द लिखना है, कितने शब्द लिखने हैं, कितने पैराग्राफ्स लिखने हैं, कैसे करना है स्टार्ट, कैसे इसको एंड करना है. They would know the body of the story, narrative, typical inverted pyramid style. अगर फीचर है तो delayed हो सकता है. This was the typical form, right? That's it. But in today's world, when you are writing, apart from text, what else should a reader keep in mind? सिर्फ टेक्स्ट से क्या मैं अपने ऑडियंस को एंगेज कर पाऊंगा फॉर 2 minutes while that person is reading that story, or 3 minutes? Will just simple text be enough to engage the reader in my story?
No, multimedia integration is imperative.
Correct.
Infographics, images, videos, hyperlinks.
Correct.
So whole gamut.
Exactly. So earlier, when I started my journey as a journalist, I used to be a reporter, and मुझे सिर्फ बोला जाता था यहाँ पे जाओ, and when I used to come back, my chief of bureau would just tell me, you know, what is the story. I used to brief him, and he used to tell me, okay, 300 words, that's it, right? And I will write, say, 350 words and send it to the desk. They will edit, and that's it. Now, when a journalist is writing in integrated newsrooms, it's not just the 300 words. They have to think about, okay, iske saath aur kya jaye, what else will go with the story. what is the photograph, what is the video, what is the audio, is there any other element that can be weaved into my story? All of that. So multimedia integration, somebody said rightly, images, videos, infographics, social media embeds, and there are also other multimedia embeds like audio, there can be visualizations, there are lots of other elements that will make my content, my news story more engaging. This is imperative. Without multimedia integration in what I'm writing, and this needs to be kept in mind while I am writing, कि इस पैराग्राफ के बाद ये इमेज आएगा, इस पैराग्राफ के बाद एक इन्फोग्राफिक आएगा, इस पैराग्राफ के बाद एक सोशल मीडिया का एम्बेड आएगा, चाहे वो यूट्यूब का हो, ट्विटर का हो, फेसबुक का हो. That needs to be kept in mind while I am narrating the story, while I am writing the narrative. Multimedia integration. So writer has to keep that in mind while he or she is writing content these days. Second, apart from multimedia, SEO optimization. Every journalist who is now writing stories for the web or in an integrated newsroom must know, must have the knowledge of how to make their story. You have written a brilliant story. It is going to win you a Pulitzer Prize. It's going to win you a Maxis Award. But that story is not SEO optimized for the web. It is not going to be read. It will not reach the audience that you want to reach. So relevant keywords in the headline, in my entire story that I'm writing, there has to be in paragraphs, especially the first 3 paragraphs of my story and the headline and the lead. This is something that journalists never bothered. 20 years back, they didn't even know what was SEO. And why this is important while I'm writing my story. Today's world, it is one of the most important things, no matter how good your story is. If you don't know how to optimize your story for search engines to find out, your story will not reach a potential audience that can be much bigger than what your story will reach if you don't do SEO optimization. So that's another thing that apart from text, a writer has to keep in mind. Call to action, the CTA button we used to say, call to action, again a technical term. Journalists while writing stories today need to know what is the call to action. Matlab kya hai? How do I guide my reader to do, what will they do next after reading my story? मुझे वहां पे भी रीडर को गाइड करना है कि सिर्फ आपने पढ़ लिया ये नहीं है कि आप पढ़ने के बाद अब इसको शेयर करो सोशल मीडिया पे, आप ये जो वेबसाइट है इसको सब्सक्राइब करो, या फिर अपने स्टोरी पे नीचे कमेंट डालो, या फिर I will make the reader navigate to a related news story by using hyperlinks within my paragraphs. So these are all CTAs. A journalist now has to know that sirf the reader will come and read my story is not enough. I will guide the reader what they will do next after they have read it. So I'll have to give those guidance, share, social share. Number 2, subscribe to the particular brand or the particular website that on which you are reading the story, so that you get multiple stories on a newsletter every morning, or you get notifications from that particular website on a particular topic, news topic of your choice. Or I'll guide them to comment. I'll probably leave a question in the end of my story that will primarily force my reader to comment on that story, give his or her own opinion on that story. Or I'll basically guide that reader, okay, while you are reading my story, you also have the choice to read another story that's there in the website that is related to the current story, or it may have happened 2 days back, 3 days back, or it can be a story that the same journalist has written, because I want readers to read more stories that I have written. So call to action, you will have to know that not just it's not my job to just make the reader read my story. It's also my job to make the reader, or rather guide that reader to subscribe, share, comment, or read a related story. That is also important. That is also a writer has to keep in mind. Analyze and adapt. This is something important. Once all of that is done, 1, 2, and 3, I've written my story, I've done multimedia integration, I've done SEO optimization, I've done call to action. Then what do I have to do as a writer? I have to analyze how my story is performing and accordingly adapt when I write the next story. Content analytics. Everything is trackable in today's world when you are doing news in digital setup, right? With content analytics, you can track every story, each and every story. You can track the traffic, you can track the users, you can track, how much how much time they have spent on your story, till what depth they have gone into the story, what action they have taken after they have read your story. All this data analytics is available, and journalist has to look at, a writer has to look at that analytics to understand, what type of content, what type of news, what type of story that he is writing is working best, and accordingly adapt while he or she will write the future story or the next story. That is very important. Journalists used to, there are very few journalists are good at mathematics, I was told. And the people who are good at mathematics, they used to work in the business desk. But today, everybody has to be good at content analytics. They need to know about what is their story's performance, how much traffic has they got, what kind of users have come, which age group has read their story, from which city, और स्टोरी उन्होंने कहाँ तक पढ़ा है. मैंने 500 वर्ड का स्टोरी लिखा है, तो क्या उन्होंने पूरा एंड तक पढ़ा है? कितना how many words have they read? Have they read the entire story? That is important. Content analytics knowledge. And of course, last is experiment and learn. That is something that we continuously do in today's world of multimedia journalism. Don't be afraid to try new formats and styles. In traditional media, there used to be very rigid about particular formats and styles, and they were driven by the editorial policies of that particular media company, right? But in today's multimedia journalism world, there has to be constant experimentation of how do I engage the user more into my story, more into my website. Because the race that media has lost to social media, how do I win that race back? Is only way to do it is to engage people in my story more and bring back the brand loyalty of my website or my media house through the digital proliferation that's happening across different platforms. So continue to experiment with different formats and styles, and you will learn from that which one is working, which one is not working. And that's exactly the reason you will find that all legacy media companies that are all now into digital ventures, they have a team within their company that constantly does different kinds of experimental journalism, and they try to find out which one is working and which one is not working, and they're even trying to how to monetize that, because eventually, as I said at the very beginning, that journalism is not broken, it's the media business that's broken. So if your media business needs to find a stable, sustainable business model that goes beyond just the advertising model of revenue, then it's the reader they have to return to, and the reader loyalty needs to return as well. So experimenting and learning is a process that can help in that regard. So while writing a story, a writer not just keeps the things that are required to entice and engage and entertain a reader in the story through text, but all these elements, multimedia integration, SEO optimization, call to action, analyzing content analytics, and experimenting with different formats and styles is essential. So that was my short take on what content writing, or rather writing for media, is all about in today's world. And I can now take questions. I'll share the PDF of the presentation I made with Professor Dhulia sir, and he may share with all of you. And I will also share the YouTube video link of the Wall Street Journal packaged video, which is very interesting. You will find it very interesting. I'll share both of them with Professor Dhulia, and he might share it with you as well. So, any questions?
थैंक
or
यू
are
सर,
there
थैंक यू।
questions?
बहुत ही अच्छे पॉइंट्स आपने दिए हैं सर।
in the
एक
chat itself?
पॉइंट जो हेडलाइन से रिलेटेड है, कैची हेडलाइन लगाना और अटेंशन ग्रैब करने वाली हेडलाइन है। मुझे लगता है जो बहुत पहले जिस जमाने में न्यूज़पेपर अपने पिक पर हुआ करता था, इवनिंगर आया करता था, इवनिंग एडिशन, तो उसमें कभी कभी ऐसी हेडलाइन लगाते थे जैसे अब राहुल गांधी को लोग जानते हैं, तो उस जमाने के जो भी रहे होंगे, राहुल को लगी गोली, झगड़े में मोदी के साथ ऐसा हुआ, तब मालूम हुआ कि वो मोदी कुमार है, राहुल सक्सेना है। बाद में जब ये स्टोरी पढ़ी जाती थी तो ऐसा रहता। तो मुझे लगता है कि ये थोड़ा सा एक सैचुरेशन पॉइंट टाइप का आ गया है कि आजकल जो हम मोबाइल पर पढ़ते हैं उसमें इस तरह की हेडिंग लगनी शुरू हुई है, लेकिन उसका सैचुरेशन पॉइंट है। अब लोग उसको भी पढ़ने के बाद लगता है कि अच्छा अच्छा बस ऐसी ही कुछ हो गया अंदर बस स्टोरी। तो इस पर सर अगर कुछ आप फोकस डालें।
यस, बिल्कुल आप सही बोल रहे हैं कि हम लोग इसको हम लोग बोलते हैं कि स्टोरी जो है और उसका हेडलाइन जो है, स्टोरी है दिल्ली का और हेडलाइन ले जा रहा है बम्बई। ये टिपिकल जिसको हम लोग बोलते हैं इंग्लिश में क्लिक बेट जर्नलिज्म, एंड दैट हैज अगेन व्हाई दैट हैज ruined the way we have credibility issues with media is because we are in the race to get clicks, we are in the race to get traffic, right? हम लोग को चाहिए कि भाई सब मेरी खबर पढ़े, मेरा ही खबर क्लिक करे, मेरे को ट्रैफिक मिले, because why? Traffic is directly proportional to ad revenue. The higher traffic, the higher chances of me getting network advertising ka impressions, and because I'll get higher network advertising impressions, I might get higher revenue from Google network ads or whatever. So again, it's the media model, right? कि कैसे करके भी मुझे ट्रैफिक लाना है, तो ये इसका हेडलाइन ऐसे बनाओ कि इसको हेडलाइन देख के ही आदमी क्लिक करके आ जाए। जर्नलिज्म इज अबाउट द स्टोरी। स्टोरी ठीक ही लिखा है उसने, स्टोरी में जो है वही लिखा है। प्रॉब्लम इज हेडलाइन ऐसा डालो कि ऑटोमेटिकली ये हेडलाइन जहां पे भी उस रीडर को दिखेगा, चाहे वो फेसबुक पे दिख जाए, चाहे वो व्हाट्सएप पे दिख जाए, चाहे वो ट्विटर पे, कहीं पे भी दिख जाए, वो इस ऑटोमेटिकली हेडलाइन देख के क्लिक करके आएगा। मेरा काम तो हो गया, क्लिक करके आ गया, मतलब मेरा एक पेज व्यू हो गया, और मेरा उस जितना तक भी पढ़ा रीडर ने, अगर उसमें 2-3 एडवर्टाइजमेंट उसने देख लिया तो 3 एड इंप्रेशंस भी आ गए। माय जॉब इज डन। Unfortunately, yes, your job is done as far as securing the traffic and securing the impression for your advertising, but that audience will never become your loyal audience.
Yes.
उसको पता चल गया कि बॉस तुम क्या हेडलाइन लिख रहे हो, क्या स्टोरी लिख रहे हो, तो ये तो तुम बेवकूफ बना रहे हो मुझे। कितने दिन बेवकूफ बनाओगे? इंग्लिश में बोलते हैं ना, यू कैन फूल सम ऑफ द पीपल सम ऑफ द टाइम, बट यू कैन फूल ऑल ऑफ देम ऑल ऑफ द टाइम।
हिंदी में कहते हैं अंजन जी, काट की हांडी एक ही बार चढ़ती है, एक ही बार
बिल्कुल
ही काट की हांडी चढ़ा सकते।
बिल्कुल। तो हम लोग
ऐसी एडिंग लगती है, सलमान और शाहरुख में से कौन महंगा बिका? वो बकरों के नाम थे दोनों।
नहीं, मैंने तो ऐसी आई डोंट रिमेम्बर, मैंने पिछले 10 सालों में ये हेडलाइन कई बार पढ़ी है, कई बार, कि सलमान खान की शादी हो गई। किससे? क्वेश्चन मार्क। सलमान खान की शादी हो गई एक्सक्लेमेशन, उसके बाद किससे? क्वेश्चन मार्क। अब बताइए, पिछले 10 साल में आई थिंक आई हैव लुक्ड एट दिस हेडलाइन अक्रॉस डिफरेंट media organizations more than a dozen times. Every time I have been fooled. वहां पे जाके पता चलता है कोई किसी फिल्म में सलमान खान ने क्या किया, उसने उस फिल्म का कोई नैरेटिव है जिसमें सलमान खान ने किसी से शादी किया है, दैट इज द स्टोरी, द हेडलाइन इज सलमान खान ने शादी की किससे, क्वेश्चन मार्क. आई हैव रेड इट 10 times in last 10 years. I'm pretty sure we have all been fooled.
आजकल YouTube पे तो थंबनेल में पता नहीं क्या क्या कर लिख देते हैं कि मर गए, धर्मेंद्र मर गए, अब वो जाके अब देखो क्या है क्या नहीं है.
Exactly. So it's all that race. That's why I said at the very beginning, it's the media business model that's broken. We are in the race to get traffic. और जब मैंने when I said enticing words, I said it's subjective. पहला 3 word, last 3 word headline के important होता है. उसका problem ये है कि how actually journalists have been made to understand is कि इतना चटपटा हेडलाइन होना चाहिए. तुम्हारा स्टोरी तो ठीक है, लेकिन इसका हेडलाइन ऐसे चटपटा होना चाहिए कि जो भी रीडर है वो क्लिक करके आ जाए. तो that is the problem. And that is the problem why you were talking about in the earlier session about the trust factor and the credibility issue.
Yes.
And we have brought it on ourselves because we haven't found ourselves out of the corner where we can rely on a different business model outside the advertising business model of revenue. Okay, iske bahar bhi we can survive. It has already happened in the West. Some of the big giants have already shown the way कि ये हो सकता है. This can be possible, but in our country we still are lagging. Hopefully this is the only way out. I mean, if we have to make readers come back to the legacy masthead news companies and their stories and bring them away from social media to read us. And the only way to do it is to do it ethically. क्योंकि हम लोग वैसा करते रहेंगे कि जैसे हेडलाइन आप अभी बात हो रही थी, तो वो तो सोशल मीडिया पे ही रहेगा रीडर. आई विल राइट एंड ही विल बी ऑन सोशल मीडिया. Yes, any other question?
Mr. Chakravarti, can you give an example of the kind of heading you're talking about?
Can I give you an example? Yes, I can give you many examples. I'll write it down for you and I'll send you.
In the last 3 words.
Yeah, so what I meant was that while, see how we are reading any story, we are reading it on a mobile phone, right? Now let me see if I can find a story, and that will be easier for us to understand, right? I'll share my screen again and I'll just show you exactly what I mean. Are you seeing my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So this is Times of India, right? And this is the story. And now I am looking at it on my laptop. But most of the people might look at it on a mobile phone. Now, how would this story look on a mobile phone? This particular story. Let me see if I can just show you. So this is how it is going to look on a mobile phone, right? And how I'm going to read it. I think there's some problem here.
And this is a bad example. I was asking for a good example.
No, I will have to find. I'm saying what I meant. I was saying that what I exactly meant by when I said the first 3 words are most important is about how people read. My context was exactly how do people read. So they practically read on a smartphone device. 80% of readers are reading this story on a smartphone device. Now look at the specific headlines that everybody is writing and why this is important. So shameful remark BJP you're looking at here, and you're looking at Ram temple inauguration. So shameful remark is the first two words that, and it's under a single quote. Then BJP condemns Uddhav Thackeray's Godhra-like incident, warning for Ram temple inauguration. So any reader who is reading it, majority of them will read shameful remark and they will look at Ram temple inauguration. Does that, they may not even read BJP condemns Uddhav Thackeray's Godhra-like incident, warning after Ram temple inauguration. They will read shameful remark and they will read Ram temple. And those people who have any, again, relevance and any interest in this kind of story, they will look at shameful remark and they will look at Ram temple and they will click on the story. It's not a question of good example or bad example. It's a question of exactly how people read. So here the most important words in this headline are shameful remark and then Ram temple inauguration.
A question here. Why do we need such a longish headline? Why can't we do a potent headline and just 6-7 words then? Because it's 3 and 3.
Because that doesn't work in digital. That's the problem. If you are just saying, that's why I said, 1 word, 2 word, 5 word, 6 word headlines, they don't work in multimedia journalism. Ideal length is 8 to 12 words. That is what is working. How much have they used? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. They have used 14 words. Ideal is 8 to 12. Why do you think they need to give such a long headline?
I think it's a mini story in itself.
Why do they have to give that long headline? Why do you think they need to give a long headline?
People stop at the headline only, no? They don't have time.
Gain attention, entice the reader in case he's interested in such a content to go ahead and read the story.
So that's why I
Maybe
said
the story is not that interesting. That is the reason they just want to grab the attention and put them on the headline.
That's why I said that when a writer is writing in today's world, there are other things they have to keep in mind. SEO optimization. So why SEO optimization? What are the words they have used? BJP, they have stuffed Uddhav Thackeray, they have stuffed Godhra, they have stuffed Ram temple. In that headline, they have stuffed BJP, Uddhav Thackeray, Godhra, Ram temple. 4 very distinct, distinct keywords that will automatically get attention of search engines, drive organic reach of that particular SEO headline, and again grab attention of the audience. So it's not just about, that's what is happening in digital. You have to know SEO optimization of headlines. Why? You could have just said, BJP and Thackeray, right? They don't need anything else. BJP condemns Thackeray's remarks, right? But they will stuff it with Godhra-like incident, they will stuff it with Ram temple inauguration, and they will stuff it with Uddhav Thackeray and BJP. They have got clear 4 keywords that are essentially going to pique interest everywhere. Did I make myself clear?
Yeah, very clear.
That is perfect.
Anjan sir, I have a question.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sumiran Kapoor.
No, actually, that's my wife's name. That's my
I'm
wife's
sorry.
laptop.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Unfortunately,
you are masquerading as your wife today. Great.
Actually, mine is unfortunately broken, so I'm using my wife's computer. Sir, you have discussed about the ways, the different ways the West has started for the, earning for media business other than the advertisements. So, like, can you like name some of them or like examples or
So the
which
biggest
countries?
biggest example is New York Times. The biggest example. So when they started their serious journey into multimedia journalism, serious journey. This is something they started around towards 2008, 2009, and there is a huge report, that's now public. It's the New York Times innovation report, how they innovated the newsroom. And when they transitioned, they were completely dependent on advertisement revenue to run their business, completely dependent, right? As we all know, subscription only drives about what, maybe 5% of revenue for every newspaper around the world, इस इंडिया में तो शायद उससे भी कम है, because in India तो newspapers are available at 5 rupees, 6 rupees. At least in the West, newspapers cost much more. But even then, that subscription is only 5% of their business revenue. So the rest is a completely advertising. So they realize that we have to move away from advertising. If we have to be critical of the powers at B, if we have to be the champion of anti-establishment journalism, if we have to speak for the reader, which is the exact purpose of journalism, then we have to clearly find a different revenue model that is outside advertising. So what they did was they pushed their digital, and they pushed their digital with subscription. So initially they used to give, you can read 10 articles on their website for free every month. And then after, if you have to read the 11th article, you have to pay. And this, they started way back, I think in sometime around 2012 or 13. They were the very first ones who pushed strongly for subscription. If you are reading my story, you have to pay for it. You cannot get it for free online. Last year, if you read, I think 2022, last year was the first time New York Times revenue from subscriptions crossed their revenue figures on advertising. So they made it possible in 10 years. Now, New York Times says revenue, the largest chunk comes from their subscribers. Largest chunk, I think it is almost 40% of their revenue is subscriber. So they don't have to bother about advertising, and it continues to grow. So ultimately, why did we, you can go back to the way journalism all began. I mean, it began as a passion, and it began as a mission. The business of journalism was all that came about in the past 30 years. Journalists became journalists because it was their passion. And those who started newspapers, those who started news channels, because they had a mission. Now it's simple business. New York Times showed us that if you have to preserve the mission and the passion, subscriber-driven advertisement revenue model is the only way forward. As long as you are a newspaper, you are a magazine, you are a television channel, you are a website, but your primary source of revenue is advertising, you can never break the chains of your journalists. That's as simple as that. So New York Times is the biggest example.
Sir, since you are a part of the digital medium of journalism, like what would be your take on like if for the new starters in digital medium, is it the text or the visual? Like if someone needs to start something, should be a multimedia channel or a website?
Both. So your website is like your digital store, right? Okay. YouTube channel is an add-on. Facebook page is an add-on. Okay. See, if I make my news content dependent on traffic on YouTube and Facebook, I'll never win the loyalty of the customer on my website. They will remain on YouTube, they will remain on Facebook. It's not my job to make my readers read my content on Facebook and YouTube. Today, you must be aware of lawsuits that are happening in Australia. Lawsuits are happening in Europe. where media publishers are asking Google, they are asking Facebook to pay them because their content, their news content is being watched, read, viewed on their platform. Australia has the legal case has just ended, and there is a huge tussle going on between Facebook and Australian government. Same thing is going to happen in Europe. Actually, they should, right? I mean, every news publication is on Facebook. They have a Facebook page. Every news publication have a YouTube channel. Every news publication has a Twitter account. They have a Instagram account. They are sharing content. Whose content is that? It is that news media houses. They have produced that content. Shouldn't they be paid for that content? But that content is being viewed for free by audiences on Facebook, and Facebook is not paying the media company a single rupee. एक पैसा नहीं दे रहे उनको. That is why the case is happening, and I'm pretty sure in the last month we got the the digital the data privacy bill just became an act, and it is now out. And I'm pretty sure there will be more regulations coming out with how these platforms and media companies are working in the future. I'm pretty sure those regulations will come out. I mean, I would want YouTube to pay me for every video. If I am Times of India, if I am Aaj Tak, if I am NDTV, I am Republic, I will ask YouTube to pay me for every video that I post on my YouTube channel. I'll ask Facebook to pay me for every news content that I'm putting out on my Facebook page. But Facebook doesn't pay. You have to pay Facebook if you have to do paid marketing. 90% of the digital advertisement revenue is with 3 companies. 90% of digital ad revenue. पूरे दुनिया में, इंडिया में नहीं, पूरे दुनिया में डिजिटल से जितना एडवर्टाइजमेंट रेवेन्यू आता है, 3 कंपनियां 90% ले जाती हैं. 3 कंपनियां, गूगल, फेसबुक, Amazon. Only 3 companies. They take 90% of the digital advertising revenue. बाकी 10% पे सारे लगे हुए हैं. Why? Because nobody is paying for their product. Nobody is paying for that service. So I need subscribers to pay. There is a Bangalore-based company. There are, as I said, there are different business models. We have to find examples. There is an example in India. Bangalore में एक digital only news website है, जिसका नाम है The Ken. THE, The Ken, KEN. They only publish technology stories. सिर्फ उनका फोकस सिर्फ है कि टेक्नोलॉजी के ऊपर स्टोरी करते हैं, ठीक है, ओनली, और किसी बारे में नहीं लिखते हैं. एंड दे डू ओनली 1 स्टोरी पर डे. 24 आवर्स में सिर्फ 1 स्टोरी पब्लिश होती है उनके वेबसाइट पे. रोज सुबह 8 बजे 8 AM वो 1 स्टोरी पब्लिश होती है. वो एक डिटेल 2000-2500 वर्ड्स की एक डिटेल स्टोरी होती है, कोई भी एक टेक्नोलॉजी के इशू को लेके. And they are a profitable media company because they only have subscribers. People subscribe them to read that 1 story every day. They are a profitable digital media startup, and they have shown the way. The Ken in Bangalore. You can do research and find out. So there are examples, not just in the West, there are examples in India. The question is, do we have the courage to really force this issue? Hindu has started. Hindu is now asking for subscribers to pay up to read their content online. There are Mint, Money Control, Economic Times. They are now asking for subscription. They are making some of the content. If detailed analytical piece अगर आपको पढ़ना है उनके websites पे, you have to pay them. बाकी सब आप ऐसे कुछ stories हैं जो free में पढ़ सकते हैं, लेकिन कुछ premium content, they have said premium content, detailed analysis आपको चाहिए, you have to pay. It has started in India, and this is the only way forward. I'm pretty sure 3 years, 5 years down the line, we will see results के how Hindu, Mint, Economic Times, Money Control, इनका जो subscription revenue है, whether that is growing or not, and that will give us the way forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir. Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much. Sir, can I ask last, do we have time, sir? can I ask one last small piece thing? Do I
Yes,
have the
sure. Sure,
Sir,
Mr. Kapoor.
So that's actually Simran Kapoor Goyal now. So
Okay.
it's Pranshul Goyal. Sir, if I have to start, or like a newbie has to start a video medium. So content is the main focus, or the production, like, or do they go hand in hand? Because I have seen a good content piece with bad production quality earning less, but a good production quality with bad content earning great on the YouTubes and the social media.
See, I'll give you a very simple answer. I do reverse engineering. So what is reverse engineering? You talk about content and you talk about production. I'll talk about the audience. First, find out, make it up in your mind, who is your audience. After that, once you know who is your audience, build a straw man. What is a straw man? कि मेरा जो पाठक है, जो देखेगा मेरा YouTube चैनल, वो कैसा है? वो 20 साल का है, वो 30 साल का है, वो 40 साल का है, वो 50 साल का है. Is he a man? Is he a woman? और is he दोनों जेंडर हो सकते हैं. इन लोगों का प्राइमरी ऑक्यूपेशन क्या है? Are they from urban areas or will they be from rural areas? What will be their economic background? You must have a clear understanding of your audience first, Mr. Kapoor. Then you go to content, then you go to production. I see the way media companies work, they focus on content and production, they forget the audience. Problem is, that's why I said while I was talking about writing कि हम लोग लिखते किस लिए हैं कि कोई उसे पढ़े. कौन पढ़ेगा? पाठक. तो आप पाठक को पहचानिए पहले. आप जो whatever venture for any new venture I speak with, I am a startup consultant, I consult a lot of startups. Whenever any media kind of venture comes up, I said, first thing that comes to my mind is, who is your audience? Can you define your audience for me? Is my audience Professor Subhas Dhulia? Is my audience Sumiran Kapoor? Is my audience Dr. Rahmatullah? Are they the same or are they different? Or is my audience a young lady sitting at Bangalore who is just 19 years old? Who is your audience? First thing, who is your audience? Then what do they like? What do they read? Where do they consume? Then comes your content and your production. Most of the cases, सब कर रहे हैं, मैं भी कर रहा हूँ, मैं भी चालू कर देता हूँ एक, राइट. दैट इज द टिपिकल होता है कि ये लोग यूट्यूब चैनल करके इनका 2000 सब्सक्राइबर हो गया, 10-50 हज़ार घंटे का व्यूज हो गया, दे हैव मोनेटाइज्ड द यूट्यूब चैनल. But the entire thing, when you think about content, first think about audience. After audience, you will, once you have a clear understanding कि मेरा audience कौन है, उनको क्या चाहिए, वो कहाँ देखते हैं, क्या पढ़ते हैं, you will automatically know कि आपको content क्या बनाना है, किस तरह से बनाना है और उनको कैसे present करना है.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So, in the era of the attention gadget, ऐसा headline कैसे लिख सकते हैं जिसमें मतलब ऐसा भी ना हो जैसे आपने सलमान खान की शादी वाली बात ही करी थी, ऐसा भी ना हो और हेडलाइन कैची भी हो. ऐसे जनरस हेडलाइन कैसे बना सकते हैं? लाइक हाउ?
नो, सो जो मैं बोल रहा था कि एक टेंडेंसी है, जब मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि आई कैचिंग हेडलाइन, इंटाइसिंग हेडलाइन की बात मैं कर रहा हूँ, तो उसका एक गलत मतलब निकल जाता है ऑटोमेटिकली कि मुझे हर हेडलाइन आई कैचिंग बनाना है. मतलब कैसे भी करके ऐसे शब्द लिखो जिसको पढ़ के वो जो भी पढ़ेगा वो ऑटोमेटिक उसको क्लिक करके आगे पढ़ना चाहेगा. ये टिपिकल टेंडेंसी है हमारा कि हम ऐसा कोई भी लाइन देख लेते हैं, जैसे मैंने कहा ना, सलमान खान की शादी हो गई, किससे? क्वेश्चन मार्क. अब ये हेडलाइन जो देखेगा, जो जिसके साथ थोड़ा भी सलमान खान का फैन हो या इंटरेस्टेड हो एंटरटेनमेंट न्यूज पे, वो उसको क्लिक करके देखेगा कि भाई क्या लिखा है, सलमान खान की शादी हो गया रे, इतने साल से इसकी हम लोग इंतजार कर रहे थे, फाइनली हो गई. पिक्चर होगा सिर्फ एक सलमान खान का, पिक्चर में कोई लड़की नहीं होगी, अंदर जाएंगे तो पता चलेगा किसी सेट में कोई फिल्म का शूटिंग हो रहा है, और उस फिल्म का स्टोरी में है समथिंग, राइट? सो व्हेन आई टॉक अबाउट enticing and eye-catching headline, that does not mean I will falsely lead a reader to read my story. इन दोनों में अंतर है कि मैं हेडलाइन में ऐसे डाल रहा हूं शब्द कि उसको देख के ऑटोमेटिक जो मेरा रीडर है वो आ जाएगा अंदर, लेकिन जब आएगा ना उसको लगेगा अरे मेरे साथ तो धोखा हो गया। तो मुझे धोखा नहीं देना है रीडर को। अगर मैंने ये धोखा देना बंद कर दिया ना, जिस दिन मैंने रीडर को धोखा देना बंद कर दिया, उस दिन द लॉयल्टी ऑफ माय रीडर विल रिटर्न टू माय न्यूज कंटेंट। लेकिन हम लोग धोखा देते ही जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि मुझे चाहिए कि वो देख के सलमान खान की शादी होगी, देख के मुझे पता है ये दिस इज समथिंग दैट इंडिया का प्रोबेबली 40% पॉपुलेशन इज वेटिंग टू हियर कि सलमान खान हैज फाइनली गॉट मैरिड, तो वो आएगा। मुझे धोखा नहीं देना है रीडर को हेडलाइन में। आई कैचिंग एंटाइसिंग का मतलब ये नहीं है कि मैं कुछ ऐसे शब्द इस्तेमाल करके लिख दूं कि उसके बाद स्टोरी के अंदर कुछ और ही है, तो उसको तो पता लग जाएगा अरे इसने तो मुझे धोखा दे दिया यार, ये तो गजब का जर्नलिज्म करते हैं, तो राइट। That
One
we should
last
not do.
question, then we'll wind up, Bakul. One last question.
Yeah. One last question is that question in the chat or no? Okay. Sorry, I have not been able to look at the chat. मैंने chat देखा ही नहीं है शायद.
Have a look at it.
I have a question.
Okay.
So Vaishnavi this side, Vaishnavi Mishra.
Hi,
So my
Vaishnavi.
question is that in this age of digital news consumption, how do print media engage younger readers? क्योंकि half of the population, अगर हम कहें हम younger readers हैं, हमारे लिए तो मतलब one click away है information and we need more of masalas. तो कहीं ना कहीं younger readers के लिए print media बहुत पीछे होता जा रहा है। कौन बैठ के पढ़े? आजकल हम बच्चों को देखते हैं, वो तो अपनी किताब नहीं पढ़ते पत्रकारिता में, तो वो अखबार क्या उठाएंगे? तो ऐसे में कैसे प्रिंट मीडिया यंगर रीडर्स को अट्रैक्ट करेगी?
Difficult, very, very difficult question, to be very honest. And I am pretty sure that, you know, there is no simple answer. How do you attract young audience to newspapers today? And ये फैक्ट है कि नई पीढ़ी जो है वो अखबार तो पढ़ती है नहीं, ये तो फैक्ट है।
नई पीढ़ी जर्नलिज्म के स्टूडेंट से अखबार नहीं पढ़ते हैं।
Journalism
No, very true. Very true. Sorry to interrupt you, but I have अभी recently joined teaching. तो my first day मेरी क्लास हुई, मैंने बोला कितने लोग पढ़ते हो? तो they were like नहीं पढ़ते मैम, टाइम नहीं मिलता, मेरा सोर्स है ऑनलाइन न्यूज। तो आई सेड कितने लोगों के पास सब्सक्रिप्शन है अखबार का? क्योंकि अब मैंने मोस्ट ऑफ द सब्सक्रिप्शंस ले रखे हैं। तो एक दो दिन मैंने ग्रुप में भेजा एंड द आउटकम वाज 0, क्योंकि किसी को कुछ न्यूज नहीं पढ़ा बच्चों ने। सो ये मेरा बहुत ही मतलब एक फैक्टर था कि आप कैसे मतलब आप न्यूज से कनेक्ट नहीं होगे तो आजकल के बच्चे क्या न्यूज पढ़ेंगे, समझेंगे?
नहीं, न्यूज से कनेक्ट हो जाएंगे, दैट इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, बट न्यूज़पेपर से कैसे कनेक्ट होंगे, दैट्स द क्वेश्चन। द क्वेश्चन इज व्हाई वुड एक 18-19 साल 20 साल या व्हाटएवर देयर एज इज, व्हाई वुड दैट पर्सन हु हैज बीन बोर्न seeing their moms and dads using a smartphone, I mean, may have 18-year-olds today, they were born in 2005-6, right, around that time.
Excuse me, sir.
So
Sorry to interrupt, but
yeah,
I would like to add something.
yeah,
जैसे
sure.
उन्होंने बोला कि अब तो न्यूज समराइजेशन एप्स भी आ गए हैं, लाइक इट्स वन क्लिक अवे आई कैन गेट द छोटे से फॉर्म में एंड आई कैन गेट अ होल पैराग्राफ इन न्यूज़पेपर्स।
Absolutely.
यहाँ पे मेरे को एक छोटे से 2-3 लाइंस में पूरा पैराग्राफ एक्सप्लेन कर रहे हैं। व्हाई वुड आई गो फॉर अ न्यूज़पेपर देन?
Absolutely. No, you are absolutely right. And Naisha, you're a student, you're joining from where?
Sir, I'm a teenager. I'm 14, so I'm seeing my point of view.
Okay. No, it's absolutely right. So, and I'm pretty sure the point that I was making, that we were born in a generation where we saw my parents, read books, read newspapers every morning with a cup of tea, and listen to radio news and listen to television news. That's how we were born. And the generation that we are talking about today, the 18-year-olds, the 20-year-olds, they were born in a generation where they found that, their parents are using smartphones and they're practically spending a lot of time on the internet. So that's one. A is behavior. Number two is what environment you are brought up in, born in. So automatically it's a very different environment. And number three, if I'm getting the same information available on my smartphone for free and at my convenience anytime I want, why would I pick up a newspaper and read it? Why would I turn on the television channel to listen to a particular program? That's a very valid question. That is a very valid question. In fact, as you see, if you look at the age-wise distribution of newspaper readership, that comes out some data. Every year, the below 35 age group every year is looking at a decline. And the increase that is happening in newspaper readership or in newspaper circulation is actually happening in the rural areas. It's the language newspapers that are still making progress, because there are still a lot of areas that are uncovered. The rural areas, there are still newspapers are being bought, but in urban setup and especially below 35 setup, unfortunately they are moving away because it's convenience. It's simple convenience. Why would I, as Naisha rightly pointed, why would I? So the question is, I don't have a simple answer to how do you engage a 15-year-old or a 17-year-old to read newspapers. Does newspapers have anything for them? Because whenever you ask this question, I answer, my question is always the return question. Does your newspaper have anything for a 15-year-old? Does your newspaper have anything for an 18-year-old that the 18-year-old or the 15-year-old cannot access on the internet? Does your newspaper have anything? मुझे अगर बेचना है एक न्यूज़पेपर एक 15 साल 18 साल के किसी को, मेरे न्यूज़पेपर में कुछ ऐसा है that will interest that person, या फिर मेरे न्यूज़पेपर में ऐसा कुछ है जो उस 18 साल या 15 साल के बच्चे को नहीं मिल रहा है इंटरनेट पे? Is there something? Do I
guess
have
that even the COVID has reduced the usage of newspaper to a great extent.
Yes, exactly.
That's
in our
so-
media house as well, there used to be a section called Young Hans, but now after COVID, it has been removed. Like in fact, during COVID.
Well,
Yes.
okay, we have more sessions with Anjan Chakravarti, so we can
Yeah.
wind up today.
And these are like never-ending discussions, where we find no solutions.
Exactly.
Unfortunately, not exactly. I would say unfortunately.
Yes, very true.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. It was very nice interacting with all of you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thanks, Anjan. Thank you.
Thank you.
वाजी ये जो पूरे सेशन का एक समरी मिल जाएगा, समरी जो या जैसे इनका था, अंजन जी का एक वो था
PowerPoint I will
PDF.
share. PowerPoint I will
Okay.
share with you.
Okay.
PowerPoint that Anjan has presented, he will share with you. I will
Any
email it to you.
WhatsApp group of this community.
Ruchika, you are not audible.
So we can. Sir, I'm saying the PowerPoint is going to be shared now.
Yes,
So
that
is
will
it
be
going to be shared on WhatsApp group?
No,
If it is,
I
then
have been
please add me on group.
I haven't formed any WhatsApp group. I'm just communicating through email. Because WhatsApp group is a little bit cumbersome. They use so heavy traffic. So we are communicating through email only. I'll share that presentation with all of you through email.
Okay.
Sure, sir.
Right.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Thank you all. See you tomorrow.
Okay, good night.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Professor Dulia. Thanks for the
Thanks.
Nice sessions. See you tomorrow, sir.